Welcome everyone to the first live YouTube version of the Sean Soderling Show, the podcast made for everyone, no matter who you are, where you are, whatever you are. We're just happy that you're listening. We're happy that you're watching if you got the link on Facebook. It's going to be a little bit different today. I know normally we talk, we dabbled into college basketball. We've done some football. Of course, tonight is the national championship game for men's basketball. But the one thing that everyone is talking about that is blowing up the sports world is Wrestlemania 30. And we have no other bigger guest right now than my own cousin, Jonathon Benjamin, who is the big-time WWE fan. A lot of my friends get on my case because of how much I like wrestling. If you want to blame someone, it's him. We've been like this our whole lives. We actually, before we started recording, we talked for probably about 20 minutes. We probably could have went another hour before we even started. It's a childhood thing for me, especially to talk to him about wrestling. We used to go to a lot of shows as kids, even teenagers, and in college. It's good for me to talk to him because it makes me feel a little bit sane. Because here, when I talk about wrestling, people just kind of look at me like I'm awkward, but I know I can talk to him, and it's just like I'm talking to the mirror, but I'm actually getting a response back. Jonathon, when for you when did you get the bug about wrestling? When was it like, all right, this is my thing?
Well, first off, I'm honored to be here on the Sean Soderling Show. I've literally turned down hundreds of podcasts this morning alone just because they wanted to hear what I had to say about WrestleMania. But I chose this one, and I wanted to be here with you. And like you said, I remember being in, whether it was grandma's house or, aunt's house or uncle's house or whoever's house we were at. You were a pretty big WCW fan. If I recall, you had all the WCW action figures. I had a lot of the WWF Hasbro action figures, as it were.
Now, here's why I was a WCW guy early on. I was just like you, diehard WWF back in the day. But the whole Jake the Snake and Randy Savage snake biting incident. If people who know me know, I hate snakes. And when that whole thing happened, I was so scared as a kid. And that's when WWE started getting a little bit edgier, or WWF at the time, their storylines were getting a little bit edgier. And I remember my mom being like, you can't watch wrestling anymore. And the only way that I could watch wrestling was on WCW and have the TV muted because they would say bad things about people. And she didn't want me repeating the same things to my friends. So that's why early on, I would get the WCW figure, stuff like that, because that's all I could watch. Just to clarify, I know people are going to jump my case. I'm like, oh, you're a WCW mark, man. No, that's not the case. Sometimes when you're a young kid, mother trumps all rules.
Well, that's absolutely true, and that's sort of how I guess I got. One day I had the privilege of being brought up in Southern Indiana, and after cartoons on Saturday morning, you would get some infomercials, and then bam, it would go straight to USWA, United States Wrestling Alliance, and that was based a lot out of Evansville, Indiana, some out of Memphis, Louisville, Kentucky. You had the Jarretts, you had the Undertaker before he was the Undertaker. You had The Rock as Flex Gavanna, Dangerous Doug Gilbert, Superstar Bill Dundee, JC Ice, Wolfie D, PG-13, Too Sexy Brian Christopher, all those guys. So even before I got into WWF or WCW, I got to see a lot of USWA, and from the very first time I saw it, I was just captivated. As a matter of fact, I think that at one point they showed the whole Lawler Kaufman, the whole storyline there with Andy Kaufman and Jerry the King Lawler, and I mean, if I wasn't bitten before that, that was the moment that probably really made me into the not only wrestling fan but person that I am today. So,
and a lot of people, even older than us, a lot of people, they may not be big wrestling fans, but everybody knows Coliseum Championship Wrestling, and everybody knows the old Coliseum on Saturday mornings with Jerry Lawler and all those guys. That's a lot of kids that I coach, their parents, if by chance I mention wrestling, they'll be like, oh, like the old Coliseum wrestling that used to be on Saturday mornings. And it's like, yeah, like that's it kind of explained it to some guys last night I was watching the pay-per-view with, was like, some of these guys, like, not anybody that was on last night, but like with The Rock or some other guys that came through Evansville, it was like we've been watching these guys for years, and to see them get like specific moments is like you kind of feel like you've known the person your whole life. It's like seeing a family member like get some big achievement.
Absolutely, yeah. It's strange. It's one of those things. It's like you're saying. A lot of people listen to a band and then they'll say, like, oh, they made it big. Oh, I was listening to them before they made it big, and it is. Like I said, I actually was in Louisville, Kentucky, and saw the Flex Cavana, which is a terrible, terrible name, but that was The Rock prior to him being in the WWF, and to see him in an arena with maybe 500 people, and then he makes his debut at Survivor Series Madison Square Garden. It not only has to be crazy for them, but it's just crazy for the people that actually have put their time and invested their hard-earned money to go to these shows and see these people. So you're kind of still getting a little bit of that with whether it be Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins, Antonio Cesaro, even he who shall not be named, CM Punk at this moment.
We're fully allowed to talk about him on this podcast.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Great.
And Punk, if you're listening, we want you on the Sean Sarling show. Like this is right up your alley. We can talk hockey, we can talk wrestling, talk baseball. Punk, this is for you. So if you're watching or listening right now, holler at us.
So yeah, like those guys are still. They still have their like independent roots, which is basically I still see that as like the last surviving territories, so it's a special moment, and we'll get into this in a little bit, but WrestleMania ending the way it did last night, it still means something. So
yeah, and kind of what going in before we start our WrestleMania talk. Who for you, for those that are watching, first time listeners, who is your all time? Everybody's got that one wrestler that's their all time favorite. Who is yours?
Wow, I don't even have to think about this. It's Ravishing Rick Rude. There is no other choice in my mind. I know that as a kid I was told to say my prayers and eat my vitamins, or just watch these larger than life superstars. But for me, the way that Ravishing Rick Rude could control an entire audience, I mean, all he had to do was come out and say cut the music, and they were all over him. And I don't think I appreciated that as much as a child as I do now. But to just see him come out, he was back whenever WWF was at its height, as when we were kids, you had larger than life people, but he didn't look like Hogan. He didn't look like Warrior. He didn't look like Andre the Giant. I mean, he looked like what a normal person would look like.
With a crazy six-pack.
With a crazy six-pack. He wasn't his arms were a normal size, I feel like. They weren't 24-inch pythons. But he came out with these airbrush tights that were just ridiculous. This huge, like, mustache that, would catch any crumb that he ate, anything. And, this huge, like, permed hair. And I don't know. The music was just great. And if you talk to anybody who knows me or any of my family members, some of my earliest memories of wrestling was putting on some sort of robe that I got, I don't know where, but and I would walk through the house as Ravishing Rick Rude. And he is it for me. 30 years later, he is the person that I will always think is the greatest of all time. So.
Do you ever wish Christian would dye his hair red?
Sometimes I do. I think that we are maybe brothers from another mother, and I do also like Christian a lot, and I was sad that he got concussed, as it were, before the big shows, so he didn't get to be part of the Battle Royal. So
for me, I'm gonna have to say I think everybody at one time in their life was a Hulkamaniac, but the guy that really brought me into wrestling that I started following religiously almost was Bret Hart. And I think for me, I've always been a person, I like the things that everybody doesn't like. And I remember him and the Hart Foundation, they wore pink, and people just, I guess got turned off by that. But I just thought, like, he was such a good wrestler. He may have not had, like, the best promos. He may have not had, the best character. but like he was what he sold himself as. Like I'm a in-ring performer, and the whole talking about telling stories. Like I as a kid, like I remember the stories he told in the ring.
Yeah, he Bret Hart is. I mean, there's no denying that he is one of the greatest in-ring performers. Some would make the argument that he is or he is the greatest in-ring performer. Watching matches, him versus. Oh, I mean, he was one of those people that you could throw in with anybody, and they did at times. You turn on Saturday Morning Superstars, and it would be Bret Hart versus the Brooklyn Brawler, and he would have just as good a match with Brooklyn Brawler as he would with Shawn Michaels or Psycho Sid or whoever they threw at him at the time, and his talents are undeniable. I recently read his book that he had. I think it's My Life in Cartoon Wrestling. I don't know the exact title, but it gives you a more in-depth look at just him and what he was going through at those times. So I don't know if there's a Sean Soderling suggested reading box in
We
the
can add one.
podcast. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that would be one for any wrestling fan out there that hasn't picked that up yet. So
Well, let's talk about Mania. I think that's why everybody's here. That's what the buzz is about right now. Opening thoughts on that opening segment. I mean, what a historical moment with Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock. I know, when Hogan came out and he's going through the promo, and all of a sudden Steve Austin's music hits. I turned to everyone that was in my house and was like, "This is what I've wanted my entire life. I've wanted Hogan Austin." And there's a part of me that is still, don't get me wrong, Hogan Rock at WrestleMania 18 was great. But there is a part of me that still says that should have been Austin. And had it been done the right way, I think it should have been Austin, because that's, we're never going to get, it's to steal Jerry Lawler's phrase, like we're never going to get Ollie Tyson. And I think that Rock and Hogan, yeah, it was a good match, but I think Austin Hogan sells a lot more and draws a lot more. But for those three, that is an opening segment. I mean, what a way to start from the past and the present and the future. The kind of that like passing the torch moment. What was your thoughts on that opening segment?
I mean, it's crazy because if you think about it, people that are around my age and your age, around that 30 to anywhere in between there, 28 to 34, I'd say, you really saw those three people at the heights of each and every one of their careers. If you watched wrestling, Hogan, whenever I was little, he was running wild, and like I said, he was saying his prayers and taking his vitamins, and I stayed up many a nights watching Hulk Hogan take on the world. And as I started to get a little bit older, teenage years, high school, college, that was your next one was Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he took off on a rocket and never looked back, and he was winning championships, and Austin 316 was just a phrase that people would say, and that was a time when I think that people who never watched wrestling became wrestling fans, and you would go into the mall and each store would have wrestling shirts, and you would see you know you would hear people talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he was on Celebrity Deathmatch, and just everywhere. You just could not look away from, it was mainstream. And then to see, The Rock come back, and The Rock's been pretty instrumental recently in the past couple WrestleManias, but to have all three of them in the ring, uh, I don't think that that part has completely sunk into me yet. Like, that's just to think about how much money that they drew and how many championships between the three of them, and what impact the event of professional wrestling, you can't really call it sport, but it is, sports entertainment, has been impacted so much by the likes of those three. So to see that, I mean, the only other way that that could have been better is if I was actually live watching that, but it was just unbelievable moment.
No.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay. All right.
we're back.
As we were saying, yes.
Yeah,
All right,
no,
so go on with what you're talking about with hitting those guys in their prime.
it's crazy to see that those three guys are in the same ring. I mean, that you talk about how crazy that this whole business of professional wrestling would have been without those three guys. And Hogan starting out, and then you get Austin, and like I said, Austin was just so mainstream. He was on TV shows, he was on every cover of every magazine, and that brought a whole new group of people to watch the sport of professional wrestling that hadn't been there before. And not to be he's no slouch himself. The Rock came out, and he's been instrumental in the past couple of WrestleManias, and just to have the three of them in the ring, it just crosses generations. And talking about the network now and how you can go back and relive all those moments, you're going to be it's hard pressed to find moments without those three people in it. And the only other way that could have been more special for me last night is if I was actually there live and at WrestleMania. It was just unbelievable.
Now, how many in a row did you end up going to?
I haven't really been to that many in a row. I was there last year at 29. Prior to that, I was there at 23 with you. So it's been in some huge in-betweens there, but it's just an experience unlike any other. They've made it into such a thing, and that's something that can't be understated, is the fact that the WWE Network is live now. And I read this morning they had some 667,000 sign-ups for the network, but watching the shows like WWE Today and or WrestleMania Today, like they are making wrestling legitimate for all those people that have always looked at professional wrestling and said things like, "Oh, that's fake," or "That doesn't, that's not, it's all staged," or whatever. Like, you can't deny they had actual pro athletes on there last night. They have celebrities. They're taking this they're making it just unbelievable, to be honest. It's actually legitimizing WWE, which I think is absolutely spectacular.
And I think it speaks volumes for them that Sean Merriman was at their NXT or the Performance Center, which is where the rookies go and train. And I believe it was like after one day he was done. Like he didn't want to do anymore. And I mean, and this is a former All-Pro NFL linebacker that we're talking about, big guy, obviously, performance enhancing drug guy from the NFL, but he couldn't even last. So I like the phrase of legitimizing the World Wrestling Entertainment. And right before the show actually started, we were getting the iPad for the network set up onto the TV, and SportsCenter on ESPN was actually running a piece on McMahon. And it's cool to see that normally the day after WrestleMania, they always will highlight something on SportsCenter that happened on WrestleMania, whether it was the main event or if there was a sports celebrity on there. But I do think that the whole thing of wrestling being quote unquote cool is coming back, because they have how many UFC guys came over or UFC fans come over because of Brock Lesnar. And I think too, bringing back everybody, any moment that you were a wrestling fan, you either liked Hulk Hogan, you either liked Stone Cold Steve Austin, or you liked The Rock. And I think bringing those guys back draws more attention, and it gets people to connect to, oh hey, like this is like, these guys are good. These new guys, like, where have I been not seeing these guys perform?
Absolutely, and you think about last year, 2013 was a huge year for The Rock. He was on the Forbes most highest grossing list, like 1.3 billion. I did say that correctly, $1 billion that The Rock's films grossed for, and that is unheard of. I mean, you have this guy who, like I said, started out as somebody that could have been easily forgotten, and now he's the world's highest actor, grossing actor. That just boggles the mind if you think about it. And these are the type of people that they get involved with the WWE, and I mean, the WWE should probably just be studied in every business class that is ever given. They almost were bankrupt. They had stiff competition, whether it be the WCW Monday Night Wars. I mean, it's just unbelievable. They're the company that really takes a licking and keeps on ticking, as they say. So
let's go with the next match, the opener of the night, Daniel Bryan versus Triple H. Whether you're a casual fan and you've gotten into the whole yes movement thing, or you're the old school fan and you've always been a Triple H guy. Um, was this the payoff that everyone was looking for?
I think that it was a collective. I liken this whole run back to somewhat to Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Vince McMahon, but also I think that it has something to do with like Mick Foley, because you look at those guys and you would never look at them and say, "Yep, that's our world champion right there. That's our guy." But the fans and the general public who aren't 6'5", 250 pounds, who don't look like they were chiseled out of stone. I mean, Daniel Bryan's still got a good physique, if you will, but he does not look like he's going to be the leader of the company. So I think it was time for everybody. It was a collective release of happiness that everybody could see this guy who went up against everything, and no matter what they handed him, he ended up walking away with that win last night. And for all those people who are tuning in and listening to this and say that Triple H buries people or he doesn't make stars or whatever, not that Daniel Bryan really needed to be made, but last night, I mean, Triple H did everything he could to make Daniel Bryan look just absolutely amazing.
Is Daniel Bryan the new Bret Hart, the working man superstar?
I think that couldn't be more spot on. I mean, he's one of those people that, once again, you put him up against just about anybody, and he's going to make them look good, and everybody who goes up against him is going to walk away better having feuded with Daniel Bryan. I mean, he had a brief feud with the Wyatts, and I think that helped out, on both ends, and it's going to be very interesting. I would like to drop an early prediction, but I would love to see possibly at SummerSlam Brock versus Bryan. I think that would be really awesome.
We'll dabble into that here in a little bit. It seemed with the whole Bryan Hunter going on first, they're trying to bring back the whole unpredictability of wrestling, but you almost felt like, okay, his first match, Bryan's got to win.
Yeah.
And from that, and you probably got the feeling, I'm sure all the others, all the other marks we want to say out there. Did you get the feeling of WrestleMania 10 all over again? Like you had Brett, no one except it was Hunter and Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, I mean that's a good comparison. You think that like Brett would have been playing the role, if I'm correct in saying this, of Triple H, and then Owen as Daniel, and you have these two forces that on their own are pretty special and great entertainers, and then you put them together and you have your thoughts and your guesses, and you think, oh man, this is going to be it's going to be pretty easy. It's Daniel Bryan. I mean, like just to see the size difference. Triple H is just huge compared to Daniel Bryan, but
Daniel Bryan's like our size.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I literally weigh 3 more pounds than Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, and with my my beard, I look exactly like him.
There you go.
So but no, you look at this guy and you can see yourself in him, and people, whether it be like you want to lose a lot of weight or you want to be more confident, or like you see all of that in Daniel Bryan, and I think that's why it tugged on everybody so much, because you just you can believe in a character like that, and I'm never going to look like Triple H. But I can possibly, with a lot of hard work, look like Daniel Bryan, and I think that's what is so amazing about that feud, and it went on for a long time, and I'm a big fan of seeing like everything come full circle, and it started, there were some bumps, and you thought for a second that maybe Daniel Bryan wasn't going to be in this, and you that's the thing that WWE has done, whether they meant to do it or not. Like they brought something back and turned something amazing out of it. So.
Now, are you a fan of the old school, the slow burn story writing style, to where let's think this whole Daniel Bryan thing, it has felt like a full year of a storyline, and some people were getting turned off by that, because I feel I want to say that the quote I read was the ADD generation. They want it now.
Yeah.
I think 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the Bryan World title would have been, done on a lesser name pay-per-view, gotten it over with, hurry up, get title on him to get people to be enjoyable about it, and then take it right off of him. And it almost this whole storyline between Hunter and Daniel Bryan has had that old school feel that the 29-year-old in me goes back to the 9-year-old in me. And I remember when there was only Saturday morning wrestling, and that was, I mean, it took a full year to truly get through a full storyline.
Yeah, and I think that that's some of the things that are missing, and hopefully with the network they can go back to some of these things, and you know, we want what we want when we want it, and that's kind of what you're talking about, the ADD generation, and you know, like it's hard to keep people's attention, and you know, if I think there's a place and time for everything. So this was great to have this kind of long drawn out storyline because it gives different layers and different dimensions as they can go back to this later even and say, you know, like if needs be, they can have him feud again with Triple H or with anybody in the Authority. Like he can have another feud with Kane now, or you know, whatever it may be. And that's the payoff you get with such a long storyline. You know, for all intents and purposes, the Shield and the Authority, like they were working side by side, but then you get this kind of thrown together match, and it was what it was. But that's kind of what you get whenever you don't have a long storytelling process. So I was very thankful for the Bryan and Triple H storyline.
Speaking of the Shield, and anybody who knows me knows, I love Dean Ambrose. I've been a big fan since the Jon Moxley days. I also a big Seth Rollins fan. You know, been watching him since the Tyler Black days in ROH and a couple of smaller shows before that. Roman Reigns, I'm just now starting to get into. You know, I don't know if I'd go so much as most people say, well, he's the next Rock. I do think there's the opportunity there. Roman Reigns, I watched him play college football. That's kind of really my only extent with him. But like I said, I'm a big Moxley, I'm a big Ambrose and Rollins fan. That match last night, while in its, I think it was like a 3-minute match, like it served its point, but like knowing how good of workers the Shield are, and especially from last year's WrestleMania match, like I was expecting more out of that match, especially with the Outlaws and Kane. I was really expecting a really good storytelling match out of them.
Yeah, I think that, you know, you were still possibly playing with the fact that Road Dogg was somewhat injured. He did not slip on the ice, as he told everybody on WrestleMania Today, but he had a legitimate back injury. And from what I heard, Billy Gunn actually left with an injury after that match. So, you know, that is some of the risk you run with having a very physical match with some of these younger guys. But, you know, the Shield have, over the past 2 years, you know, they're undefeated at WrestleMania now. They're all 3-2-0. So
the new streak.
Yes, the new streak. There you go, everybody. You can get on that bandwagon. But you know, the Shield, obviously, I don't think that they all kind of speak for themselves. And you know, I watched a little bit of Florida Championship Wrestling before the NXT took over, but you know, Roman Reigns was pretty green. You know, he's got what everybody thinks a wrestling person should have. You know, he's got size and strength, and you know, he has all of that. But I think he's just now coming into his own, and you know, whether you get the Superman punch or the long drop kick that he does on the outside of the ring, he's like a blank canvas right now. Like I think that the sky's the limit for him, but he's got they have to really find the right thing for him. Whereas, you know, Dean Ambrose is pretty much established. He's crazy. He's a piper. You know, that's a good comparison with him, I would say. Tyler Black, Seth Rollins. He's also a great, you know, great wrestler, and I think.
Now, are you like me and have a hard time, like, I find myself slipping and calling them by previous names?
Yes, absolutely. I still call Fandango Johnny Curtis, so it's something that we as wrestling fans, and you know, you pretty much watch all sports, whereas I'm strictly a pro wrestling guy, so I can't even imagine how hard it is for you because there's so many names in, you know, MLB and NBA and college and all that stuff. So my
wife refers to me as the Rain Man of professional sports because I can tell you every guy, the shoes he wears, every wrestler, who he used to be, where he used to work. Same thing with pro athletes. You know, teams they used to play on, things they did 25 years ago. For me, it is hard because I do watch For me, especially with the Shield, since we're talking about them, I can sit here and say Rollins and Ambrose, but then there will be certain things that they do where I'll catch myself and be like, oh, Tyler Black, I remember when he did that same thing. It's like, crap, he's Seth Rollins now. Or if Ambrose has a really crazy, awesome promo, and I'm like, whoa, like that's old school Moxley right there.
Oh yeah,
And it's so I guess for me, like that's a hard thing, and I feel like now the wrestling fan organization that used to run around Evansville before you moved. I feel like nowadays, like if I was around those people or around the crazy fans, if I was to say something like, "Oh, Tyler Black or John Moxley," like somebody would like try to punch me in the face because like, oh, that's not who he is. That's Dean
yeah,
Ambrose. You kind of hit about if these three guys were to break up. Now, me personally, I think run with these guys. Like they're a top draw right now. In the past few years, I dare say anybody's better than them. I think given the right storyline, they could be as big as Daniel Bryan right now. Because it all goes back to last year, and you were at New York's WrestleMania when their music hit. MetLife Stadium went nuts, and that was one of the biggest pops of the night, I think.
absolutely. Yeah, they do have something with them. Once again, it's kind of cool. It's different, and that was the thing is when they came out on Raw and threw Ryback through a table. It's a moment. It's one of those things that doesn't happen every week, and I think we as fans always want something. We want a surprise. We want to see something that we haven't seen before, and you've pretty much gotten that. Like the Shield coming through the crowd, that's still a thing. Like any other people, they would have had him, just walk down the aisle. And last year it was great, and they were going against three top guys. You had Sheamus, Show, and Orton, and I don't know if I mean they won cleanly over those three, might I add, and that's a big deal, and they all will be fine if there is a breakup, but they teased it, and now they're kind of on the fans' good side, so I think that they've got a long run out of them if they want. But no one's going to suffer if they break up. They're all going to be just fine, I think. So
Now, me personally, I have a hard time if they do break up. I have a hard time with what kind of care. You talked about with Reigns being a blank canvas. I truly think Rollins can go back to his gimmick from NXT, kind of that heavy metal screamo type guy. I think Ambrose can, if WWE will let him go back to the whole crazy John Moxley type thing, I think he's got a character there. But that blank canvas of Roman Reigns is what worries me. Is he a physical specimen? Yes. He's starting to become a even better worker within the ring. But if you take the bullet jacket off of him and you take the dark black pants off of him and you put him in a pair of tights, are you going to get the same thing out of him?
yeah, I don't think that you're going to get as strong a thing as you're going to get with those two. And to be honest, I think it's basically because he hasn't been around it. He didn't work a lot of independence. He basically got called up, and because of his impressive size and strength, he was in FCW and then later NXT. He was leaky in that company, and they're basically playing off the fact that he's Samoan.
And he's cousin with The Rock, which doesn't hurt.
Yeah, and his dad's Sika, so one of the Wild Samoans. It's not surprising that he's in this business. It's just what are they going to do? And he may suffer the fact that he was such a big deal in the Shield, and then once he goes back, people may not care as much about him. So they're going to really have to not drop the ball with him, and that may be easier or harder than what I think it should be. But and just to throw this out there as well, I would really like to see another newcomer to NXT, the former Sami Callihan, the current Solomon Crow, to team back up with Jon Moxley to reinvent the Switchblade conspiracy. I think that would be absolutely amazing. That's some CZW for those fans out there.
We'll take a break real quick. I'll let Jonathon catch his breath. But we want to definitely thank everyone right now who is tuning in to the first live edition of the Sean Soderling Show, the sports podcast for everyone, no matter who you are, where you are, whatever you are. We're dabbling into, as a lot of our listeners call it, Wrestlemania, and damn it, we're okay with that. I think hopefully this shows my. I know a lot of friends of mine that are big wrestling fans. I try to get them to listen to the show. You can like us on Facebook, The Sean Soderling Show. Follow on Twitter at Coach Soderling. I do a lot of professional sports stuff, but I've always wanted to dabble into the professional wrestling side. Like I said, it's the I've always thought professional wrestling is cool, and now it's starting to become cool again. And I like the fact that I can somewhat show my knowledge a little bit, although my cousin, our guest today, will trump me at all times. If you want to advertise on the Sean Soderling Show, you definitely can. We are currently open up to 2 spots on our sponsorship deal for anyone wanting to get involved with the Sean Soderling Show. It's becoming a very, very popular podcast available on Facebook at the Sean Soderling Show. Looking to get it on iTunes, and we will get lots of subscribers. It's no bigger deal than that. All you have to do is email coachsoderling@gmail.com, and you can be a sponsor of the Sean Soderling Show. If you got to catch last week's show, we talked with stand-up comedian, Vine famous Dana Moon, as she gave her picks for tonight's Final Four National Championship game. Make sure to listen to that and find out who her pick was. We'll go back into with our guest here today, Jonathon Benjamin. Jonathon, can everybody follow you on Twitter?
They can. It's at Limousine Riding. It's a little throwback to the Nature Boy Ric Flair there, so at Limousine Riding.
And I've noticed here on our control panel we do have some viewers, and I'm sure they are coming from the Facebook group of Marks. Marks, the insider term for wrestling fans, and I remember about 5-6 years ago, like it was like a cut down to be called a mark, but now it's like the fans have embraced the term.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it was derogatory. It was an insider term such as heel or face, but thus being the reality era now, everybody is kind of embracing it. So I got involved with this group, Pro Wrestling Marks, and they're a great group of guys, very knowledgeable fan base, and you can get on the Facebook page. It's Pro Wrestling Marks, so definitely check them out.
Let's keep on going with some more WrestleMania matches. The up next is the Andre the Giant Battle Royal Memorial Invitational at Bound for Glory. Kevin Nash, Cruiserweight X Division Battle Royal at Bound for Glory. That definitely wasn't the name, and I guess I should apologize to Andre for bringing Kevin Nash into it, but I wouldn't have had it any other way. Once again, another name of a match way too long. I think for the people that were at my house, which is just my wife and my neighbors, I think with the whole thing of there were 3 unannounced guests or participants in it, I was expecting some big names, and all of a sudden, like, they just had Big Show and Mysterio come out. And it was like, okay, well, who's in the match? Who were the 3 or 4 surprise entrances? What was your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that it was just a miscarriage of justice that Brad Maddox was not the winner of the inaugural Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. I'm a big Beef Wellington guy. That's OVW for you kids watching at home. I think that it was somewhat a big CF, as we call in the business. There was too much going on, and I think a lot of these guys were just thrown in this because they didn't want to have a match for them at Mania. And, am I happy with the outcome? Absolutely. We're talking about people that are coming up through the independents. Claudio Castagnoli. Ring of Honor. I mean, huge talent. I mean, he's been in Chikara. He's been in every promotion that you can think of, and he is going to be what you see as the future. And watching shows like WrestleMania today, you can hear all these guys. They get excited whenever they're talking about him, and Cesaro is one of those guys that he is the real deal. He may not look like Hulk Hogan, and he speaks several different languages. I mean, that's perfect for the business side of things. They can go to almost anywhere in the world, and he can speak to the fans. That's huge. And just his feats of raw strength and power. Last night he picked up the Big Show. I did that once, but it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and I'm happy with the outcome. It looks like that the Real Americans are probably going to get, they had a rift last night, and I think that probably Cesaro is going to be out on his own, and the sky's the limit for this guy. It really is.
Now, here's my issue is I really want Cesaro to bring his old theme back, the Dean Malenko sounding. I think it was called Miracle or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm one of those like the details guys. I'm gonna be really upset if he ends up with the Real American music. Cesaro is a guy, once again, maybe it's the Rain Man in me. I can't call him Cesaro, and it's not that I don't try to. It's just he comes on TV, and so much to where now my wife's like, oh, like that's Claudio.
Yeah.
And my wife by no means is a diehard professional wrestling fan. It's just that's what's on our TV on Monday nights. But even last night, like he came out, she's like, oh, like Claudio's in. I think personally, he is a guy that the sky is the limit, and I think that he will do anything anything put in front of him, he will accomplish. But there's a part of me that's still afraid of he's an indie guy, quote unquote. And for the listeners of the Sean Sarling Show, where we normally talk about sports, an indie guy is the guy who wrestles in high school gymnasiums for $5 or wrestles at a local fairgrounds. Claudio is one of those. See there, I do it again. Antonio Cesaro is one of those guys that I remember watching in IWA Mid-South, going and paying $10 at a local armory and watching him and Chris Hero and CM Punk and some of these guys. I almost said Bryan Danielson. Daniel Bryan. A lot of these guys started off in these small shows. Seeing Claudio, as we talked earlier, there I did it again. You're gonna have to like catch me on this. Seeing Cesaro win that match last night, especially the way he did, and JBL hit the point on the head. That visual of him picking up Big Show and throwing him over the ropes, we're going to see that video image for the next 70 years.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And, I think I have an answer to your problem. I have a jar near my bed, so anytime I say, like, Bryan Danielson or Claudio Castagnoli, I put a quarter in it. So it's about...
Where does that money go to?
Just to buy more wrestling stuff, basically.
Okay.
So, yeah. The network this month was paid for by my Claudio Castagnoli and Bryan Danielson remarks. So, no, these guys are great, and there is a stigma with these indie guys. But look at all you have to do is watch NXT. If you have been watching NXT live on the WWE Network, you will see that Cesaro went against the former El Generico, the current Sami Zayn, and they put on...
I can't call him Sami Zayn.
No,
that is Generico.
Yeah. But, they put on what is, everyone talks about, the term now gets just used so much, but a wrestling clinic. People who are trying to get into the business, or 50 years are trying to get into the business, should watch those things that those guys were doing. Those are, I call them the everyman. It's the people that you can really get behind and look at and say, like, yeah, I can be that. I can be that person. I can't be The Rock. I can't be Stone Cold Steve Austin, but can I be Sami Zayn? Can I be Yeah, absolutely, I can be that person. So it's a great thing to see these types of people, independent or not.
But you literally be Sami Zayn, though.
Yeah, well, that is true. That is true. But they are their talent will shine through. They're gonna float to the top, for lack of a better term. If they were, there's hundreds of independent people that have made. Chris Hero is one of them. He was Cassius Ohno in NXT, and that didn't work out too well for him. And
big shouts to Chris Hero. That's my boy from Duke basketball. He and I, about 2 years ago, I randomly saw on Twitter him say something about a Duke basketball game, which if you can see in the background, I am a big Duke basketball fan. And I just sent him a message, and I'm not going to lie, that's what got me into his career. Like before, I'd always heard of Chris Hero and never really paid attention to him, but it was that sports connection to teams that we both liked. So much to where, he and I have kept in touch during basketball season. So big shout out to Chris Hero. If you're listening, if you're watching, Chris, I'll make sure to mention you on Twitter for this one. But, yeah, Chris Hero's my boy, Duke basketball. He knows what I'm talking about.
Just real quick, you brought up a very good point there, and I think that young wrestling fan inside both of us would have literally died if you had the chance to communicate with your favorite wrestlers like you do today. I mean, I've gotten retweets, I've gotten messages from wrestlers. I mean, they see me at shows. It's just unbelievable how this world is working these days. Like before, I would go to a signing and I would stand in line at the Blockbuster Video to meet Sonny, which I did. This is a true story. In like '96, and that's the only contact that I had with these people other than going to these shows. But now I can hop on Twitter and say, "Wow, Sonny, you look old," or well, I'm sorry, Sonny, you don't look old. You're amazing. But I can say whatever I want and talk to these people, and it is completely different than the time that when we grew up. And I'm not saying that it's not great. It is. It's absolutely great. But I mean, that's why I'm so appreciative of what I have now, because I went through that time where you didn't have direct contact with any of these people. And being in Indiana, we had some shows, some pro wrestling shows. So we'd get a big show probably every year, not the big show, but a big show. We would get like once
Although
a
he
year.
would be there.
He would be there, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the former Roberts Stadium in Evansville was always full with either a WCW house show, a WWF house show, like you were talking about the Coliseum. But I about 7 years ago moved up to the Northeast, and I am right now situated about 20 miles from WWE headquarters, which is just another mind-blowing thing to me. But I can go to an independent show, I can go to a pro wrestling show every day of the week, and I'm very spoiled now. But this is probably one of the greatest things ever. Is just to be able to do this.
It was destiny. Speaking of destiny, one of the main attractions last night was Cena and Bray Wyatt. That was a match I think a lot of people were looking forward to. I honestly, when the proposed Wrestlemania card was leaked months and months and months ago, and saw Cena versus Wyatt, I admit I was not big into it. I didn't think it was, and that's nothing against Cena or Wyatt. I think both great performers. I think once again with our connection to sports on the Sean Sarling Show, Bray Wyatt, former collegiate football player, as well as John Cena. Both great athletes, but I didn't think the chemistry was there, or that it could be there. Did they prove me wrong during the storyline build-up? A little bit, but I personally, the match really didn't do anything for me watching it last night.
There's two MVPs of the whole John Cena and Bray Wyatt thing. It's the first MVP goes to the person who puts together the video packages for WWE.
Yes.
And Eminem, he gets a shout out as well for the song Legacy. They bust their butts, and they do this for everybody. You look back at these classic moments and you see these build-ups, and they're amazing. So that got me interested. I'm like you. A couple of months back, I heard that was the proposed match, and I was like, I'm not too huge on that idea. I would rather maybe be the Wyatts versus the Shield or whatever, But they did pique my attention. The second MVP for the night goes to Mark Crozer, the gentleman who does Bray Wyatt's theme. I think that was an amazing live performance that they put on. But the match itself, it showcased all of Bray Wyatt's strengths. I don't think that there was much out there that and also you got to see John Cena as not that main event role. So for everybody who hates John Cena because he's always the main event or what have you, I think that you got to see John Cena take a back seat to that because he felt that it was important to go against somebody like Bray Wyatt. He's smart enough to know that the business is cyclical and that John Cena is, he's still going to be around for a while, but guess who's going to keep making those paychecks come in? And it's going to be people like Bray Wyatt. So the match itself was decent. I don't think it was the match of the night by any means, but I definitely believe that they went out there and they told the story, and from start to finish, it was as good as a match as those two could have had together.
What for me, that one of the things that really kind of got me away was the whole demons talking to Cena during the match. Like he was getting ready to do something, with a chair, or he's going to do something vile, and then also he'd start going crazy like that. That took me out. It was, I hate to say the word, but it was cartoonish.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that, and the thing with Bray Wyatt is, um, I think that could have worked in more of a time when the business wasn't geared towards mostly young kids, and that's what it is today. But I want you to just think about this for a second. I never got the official number last night, but some 75,000 people were in the Superdome, not the Silverdome, Hulkster, if you're listening. Um, but I think that is despite WW 75,000 people plus millions watching at home on pay-per-view or the network. That is despite them just releasing a WWE video featuring Scooby-Doo. I mean, they
Yeah.
are gearing this towards it used to be that 18 to 34 male demographic that they fought hard to get. And, we're also watching obviously, but they are gearing this towards young kids now. And I think that that's where matches like last night, Cena versus Bray, kind of suffer a little bit, because had it been maybe the Attitude Era, they could have probably got a little deeper into this, a little more gritty. But I think that the match set out to do what it did, and I don't think that it's anything bad. But like I said, match of the night, it was not. So
Do you think that while we say that yes, it is a kids show, you've been to WrestleManias, I've been to WrestleManias, the hardcore fans, when they were trying to get that 18 to 34-year-old male demographic, those are still the majority of the attendance in WrestleManias. Do you feel like WrestleMania should be catered to the hardcore fans, because that may be the one show a year that they go to? Um, that's for me. That's because it seems like when they build, this whole Cena Wyatt storyline, you see on Raw the kids cheer for Cena, they boo for Wyatt, but at WrestleMania you're always going to get something different because the hardcore fans want something different.
I think that you got that last night, whether people want to agree with that or not. Last night, you had Daniel Bryan walk away as the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. If you would go into the center of any WWE house show that you go to from here to the end of time, and you go in there and poll 10 kids, you ask 10 kids who their favorite is, John Cena or Daniel Bryan, 10 out of 10 are going to tell you John Cena. So the fact that John Cena wasn't in the main event and Daniel Bryan was tells you that the WWE was giving you a nod, and they're saying, listen, we understand the 18 to 34 demographic is still there, and here's Daniel Bryan, and congratulations.
Has we Cena enough went through already? Has that
Uh,
sign made its point now?
oh, I think so. I think that, but you people have to understand that WWE is a business. It always has been and always will be. And I don't care if Zach Gowen was the person that they decided. He has one leg, by the way, for people who are just tuning in.
Who
Uh,
once tried to fight me at an IWA Mid-South show in Vincennes, Indiana?
Not shocked by that. I'm not shocked by that. But if that's the guy that they chose, then that's the guy they're going to push to the moon. And you know what? Cena's work ethic speaks for itself. Do I like the guy as a professional wrestler? Not particularly. But do I respect the can I say the H word on your show?
Yeah, yeah.
I do respect the hell out of John Cena for what he does and what he continues to do. It's not an easy business. They're on the road 300 days a year. And he goes out there despite everything, and he puts on a show, and typically a show that's better than most of the other people. So if you want that spot, it's open. Anybody can take that spot, but you have to be able to do what he does, and good luck.
Well, your boy's been down from day one
No, I
with
know.
Cena. I think for me, do I like Cena as much as I did? I like him, but not as much. And for me, when he first started coming up, I remember going to OVW and seeing the prototype, this big jacked up guy walking out like a robot, and then seeing him when he first came on and the ruthless aggression, I kind of like shrugged this aside. But people who know me, I'm a big old school hip hop guy. When the whole rapper gimmick started for Cena was when I instantly got into it. And there's a part of me that's what I long for. I think the moment that he was drafted to Raw on the ever famous Raw show in St. Louis, I think that was a moment that it kind of died down for me, because that's when the whole new the people, I guess, want to call him Super Cena, or Hulk Hogan Part 2 kind of started. if he would go back to the rapper gimmick, I don't know. I throwback snapbacks, fitted hats and jorts with Reebok pumps. I was a fan of that. And I think too, he's so controversial because I do think the people that don't like him, if he would have never left that side, that I think people would still be behind him. But it's one of those things too. I was in an argument with somebody the other day. I don't want to say argument, but and this would be a great topic for the Marks page on Facebook that Jonathon mentioned that I don't add a lot of content to the Marks page because I don't feel like I have the adequate background because I'm just a sports guy that happens to watch wrestling. I think the way that guys our age, that 30-year-old, the guys that were in the Austin, the Rock stage, if we all at one time, we were all Hulkamaniacs at one point in time. And I think, because that was shoved down our throats. This is the real American hero. This is, the 5 ways to live your life. And I think now when we all have children, and I've got mine coming up here in a couple months, when my daughter or my future son, when they're my age, I think Cena's going to be their Hulk Hogan because it's you see the resemblance in the careers of shove down the neck of the kids, like this is who your hero is. So I wonder if when we were kids and we really liked Hogan, were the older people saying like the same things that we say about Cena.
Absolutely, and I think that you want to talk about like a year-long angle or whatever. You want to talk about the slow burn. You look at Hulk Hogan. I mean, he started his career as somewhat a heel, and then but no one ever remembers that. They just remember, when he blew up in the 80s and became, Hulk Hogan. But years and years and years of that being shoved down your throat, and then you take a guy like Eric Bischoff who had the foresight to turn him into heel Hulk Hogan. So, I mean, Cena's got a lot of years left on him, and that's not to say that we're not going to get that from John Cena. Will I still be watching wrestling at that point? Possibly. I would assume so. I'm never going to retire, as Ric Flair said, but I definitely think that there is the possibility and the potential for them to capitalize on John Cena being like a monster heel. And, those are types of things you only see Haley's Comet, once every however many years, but like you only get a couple of these in the lifetime, and to see John Cena and Hulk Hogan both turn heel, I feel like once it's done, it's going to be just magnificent. And they've teased it before, but they can definitely do that with John Cena. They can turn him back, and then you're going to get even more of those people that maybe was on the tail end, that maybe they're not 30, maybe they're 20, and they just they started watching wrestling right as John Cena changed from being the coming out in the Mitchell and Ness jerseys and stuff to actually being Super Cena, as they say. So I think that there's potential there, and it will be interesting to see what the future holds for John Cena.
Speaking of the future, we're going to go into our next match, the Streak versus the Beast, Brock Lesnar versus the Undertaker. I actually was just going through the Marks page on Facebook, seeing I noticed that somebody has mentioned our show on there. If you're joining the Sean Sarling show right now, the podcast, all you have to do is type in Undertaker on Twitter. The people who haven't watched wrestling in 15 years were talking about last night. It's one of those things too where there is controversy behind it. I saw somebody post this morning. You will always remember where you were when you saw the Undertaker lose at WrestleMania. What was your initial reaction?
I don't know. I felt like, this is me too, this is how ridiculous this is, but I feel like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. And that sounds very strange to probably most people. I had nothing to do with the match, obviously, but a weight was lifted off my shoulders in the sense that every year at WrestleMania, for the past 22 years, there was a constant, and that was The Undertaker defending his streak. Did they know 4 WrestleManias into the streak that they were going to have him be undefeated? Probably not. But as the build started to get bigger and bigger, then they decided that that's the direction they were going to take with it. People tend to forget that at WrestleMania 9, Undertaker won by DQ. And you think about the last 5 or 6 matches that he's had, and you realize how ridiculous that is. But he won via DQ against Giant Gonzalez when Giant Gonzalez put chloroform on a rag and made Undertaker pass out. So that's your precious streak right there, everybody. I mean, that's why I've never, to me, the streak never held much water. Do I think The Undertaker is a phenomenal athlete? Absolutely. Do I think he is one of the top 3 greatest in-ring performers of the WWF? Absolutely. WWE? Also, there's a quarter in the jar. But last night, to me, it didn't change anything. I mean, like 21-1, The Undertaker has that, you know? And to go against Brock Lesnar, he is the real deal, and people are mad that he's a part-timer. He's, you know, going back and forth between whatever he wants, and you know, if you had that ability to do that, you would do it too. And
it's not like he didn't perform day in and day out in his first run.
Absolutely, and that's something that people forget. And for all of you people out there, I'm gonna get fired up, and I apologize.
This is the Sean Sarling show. You are more than welcome.
You know, people need to go back and watch Brock Lesnar in his early days in the WWF, in OVW even. I mean, he was going out there, and he did have Paul Heyman, but still, I mean, that was all on his own physical merit, and the guy is a legitimate beast. To see him pick up Rikishi in F5, to see him pick up Big Show, I mean, you talk about people who have had feuds in this business. He's feuded against everyone that you can think of. He's feuded against John Cena, Hulk Hogan, The Rock. I mean, he was supposed to feud against Stone Cold, but that didn't happen, obviously. You know, I think a lot of people, what it boils down to, and people will disagree with me, but I'm right, so that doesn't matter. They're going to disagree with me, but they're going to say that what left a bad taste in their mouth was the Goldberg-Lesnar match at WrestleMania 20, and that will go down as one of the worst matches in WrestleMania history. I mean, the potential for there was just unbelievable. But Brock Lesnar is the youngest. Hold on, excuse me. Brock Lesnar youngest WWE champion of all time. He went against The Rock in a match that is very underrated at SummerSlam, and I think it's probably one of the best. Just to watch those two train for that match is just amazing in itself. So I highly recommend going back and watching Brock versus Rock at SummerSlam.
On the WWE Network, which you can get for $9 a month.
$9.99 a month, absolutely.
Vince, you need to sponsor the show. I will plug your network.
Yes. I think that, you know, Brock Lesnar beating the streak, who else would you want to do it? Everybody said, well, Shawn Michaels. Well, Shawn Michaels ended Ric Flair's career. You guys would be complaining that Shawn Michaels retired Ric Flair and beat the streak. So,
hey, I was there that night, and I did complain.
Absolutely. I mean, and Shawn Michaels is a great wrestler, and you know, would it have made sense? Sure, but like I feel like this makes sense too. You have two people who have made a living being like just complete and utter, bad ass Billy Guns. That's what they were. They were just complete and utter machines, and they both have some sort of a background in like the MMA. You know, Undertaker has the gloves. Brock Lesnar has the gloves. Undertaker has the Hell's Gate. Brock Lesnar has the Kimura lock. Like, this makes sense to me, and I don't understand why it doesn't make sense to other people, and it's probably my own fault, but I think that to have somebody like last year, CM Punk, would it have made sense? Absolutely, because the story was built to make it go either way. It made you feel that way. But of all the people that I can think of in the WWE currently, I think that having Brock Lesnar defeat the streak carries just so much weight, and it's an amazing thing. And now, not only does Brock Lesnar get the rub from this match, but Paul Heyman essentially does as well. So if Paul Heyman wants to have another Brock Lesnar or a Paul Heyman guy, then he can feel free to do so. And guess what? That person's automatically going to carry weight. So if they bring up, I don't like this guy, but just for Big Fat, for instance, if they bring Corey Graves up from NXT and he's the new Paul Heyman guy, guess what? Paul Heyman's the guy that helped defeat the streak. So in essence, Corey Graves is good now too. So I think that it's all around. And we tend to forget this, but it needs to be said. Undertaker has so much clout with the company, and he's done so much with WWE that he basically, I'm going to say, and it may come out differently, but I still believe that he handpicked Brock Lesnar for this match, and he also handpicked Brock Lesnar to defeat the streak. So,
some have said that he picked Lesnar years ago, and they just
I
never work out the details.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And I mean, they didn't show. This is the one thing I was disappointed with the build up. They never showed the match, or they never showed the
UFC fight.
The UFC fight where Undertaker was in the crowd with Mrs. Undertaker, Michelle McCool, and Brock Lesnar came and walked past him, and they had a stare down. And I think that would have added another element to this match. But you know what? It's the Undertaker and it's Brock Lesnar. And on 5 years ago, 8 years ago, that would have been the highlight of WrestleMania. Like, it would have been the highlight of any Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-view, or whatever. So for these people now, I get it. People don't like to see things happen, but this is it. I mean, The Undertaker is aging. We talked about this before we started the podcast. He just looked old, yeah, and that's something I never thought I would say about The Undertaker. And 1990, I was there when he debuted. I wasn't there, but I mean, I was watching it and I saw it, and I never wanted to these people are like childhood heroes, and you never want to see them not be as good as they once were. And I think that Undertaker is saying to everybody, like, I can't go on forever, but this guy's got a lot left, and he's the real deal. And I think that's what happened.
From your explanation of why Lesnar, I think you bring up a good point of, and to take one of your words from early in the podcast when we were talking about professional wrestling as a whole, I think Lesnar's win legitimizes pro wrestling. Because if you think of people who watched last night for the first time, they see the gimmicks, they see the characters. Okay, well, here's The Undertaker. Yes, he's undefeated. He's been this big, strong, wrestler for all these years. He's fighting an MMA fighter. Not just an MMA fighter, but a former UFC world champion.
In 3 matches.
And you would look at, from a non-wrestling fan standpoint, like, I would say probably a lot of listeners to the show, when they watch it, they say, well, the UFC guy should win every time. And I think that to steal your word, legitimize, from the earlier topic, I think Lesnar's win legitimizes wrestling, because here's, the realistic, I think you said earlier, the reality era. The UFC fighter should always win, especially fighting a guy much older than him.
Yeah, no, and you know what? Like, who? I always wonder who these people who are upset about this, do they just not want the streak to ever end? And then he just gets older and older and older and looks worse and worse and worse in the ring, and then he goes to, because this would have been 22, so 3 more years. Let's just say realistically, he would have went against 3 more people, got to 25-0 and retired, and the match quality would have slowly but surely went further and further down. Or have him go out against somebody who, it makes sense. I mean, this does make sense. Who else would you want? Well, people are saying, well, it should have been to Roman Reigns. Okay, well, if Roman Reigns would have won against The Undertaker last night, it would have been a complete, absolute mess in the ring. Undertaker could only do so much with Roman Reigns. So to have him go against Brock Lesnar, who, like I said, he's gone against everybody in this business. And let's not forget WrestleMania 19. You want to talk about Brock Lesnar, and he's only here for part-time, and he's only here to cash a paycheck. The man almost broke his neck trying to perform something to entertain all of us. He went against Kurt Angle, who is arguably the greatest pure athlete in the history of the business, other than our cousin Shelton Benjamin, which, but he's the real deal. And Brock Lesnar climbed to the top, did a shooting star press, nearly broke his neck because he wanted to entertain and put on a great match. That's the person that I want to be the champion. That's the person that I want to break the streak, is a person like that.
Do you think that and I think we all have the WrestleMania hangover. I woke up this morning after watching last night on the WWE Network. Um, I woke up this morning thinking to myself, people talk about Brock being a part timer and all that jazz. Do you think because of what this means now, and we can sit here and say that Undertaker picked Lesnar, and they have the UFC history background stuff like that. Do you think Brock takes on a little bit tougher work schedule now?
I would hope so. And two things. First of all, I want to say that I think that hashtag WrestleMania Hangover should be trending worldwide because I think that's brilliant. Um,
I'm
and
I'm I'm gonna tweet that right now.
yeah,
WrestleMania hangover.
yes, I think that's genius. And number two, you brought up a very good point. And whether people want to believe this or not, they're looking at Brock Lesnar as a part timer. He went against The Undertaker, who wrestled one match since last year.
Undertaker's a part timer too. He works like 2 shows a year.
He is a part and an old timer. He is both. So if you're going to come down on Lesnar for fighting, his schedule's been absolutely crazy this year. I mean, he has wrestled and he's paid his dues. So let the man have the streak. Undertaker wrestled one match a year, and you know what? I'm thrilled at the outcome. I absolutely am thrilled.
I think that the big thing now is that Undertaker called an audible, and because the finish did look kind of botched, is the word to use. I agree with something that you said earlier about we could have him do this for 3 more years, and the match quality will just continue to go down. If you look at the Undertaker in the last, my gosh, 5 years, 6 years now, he's worked 2 matches with Hunter Hearst Helmsley, 2 matches with everyone's favorite Shawn Michaels, and a match with CM Punk, my personal favorite. He had talented guys making him look good. Go back to the match before Shawn Michaels, Mark Henry. I know Tim Sullivan is a diehard Mark Henry fan, but if he and here's what I know about the streak. I can't even name you who was before Mark Henry, but you look at he fought an aging Ric Flair at WrestleMania. He fought Big Show and Albert at a WrestleMania. So, and that's the point to where the streak really didn't matter to people. But I think when you have him working with guys who and I think there are a lot of people who mention that it should have been Daniel Bryan because Bryan will make him look. Bryan can make a piece of paper look good in a match. I think, given the right people, could he have done it 3 more years? Yeah, but if you'd asked me that before last night, I would have told you that. Seeing him once the robe came off, the hat came off, my wife was the first one that was like, he doesn't look good at all. And I've never seen him that skinny. There was a part of me that thought something's wrong with him. But and then the reports are now that he doesn't even know what happened because he got a concussion in the match and had to go to the hospital. Was it the right send off? Who knows? But I'm like you. I think people are so upset about it's the streak is over, but they're always going to remember. He can always still say like he was 20-0.
Yeah.
Or 21-0, whatever it is. Who do you think, had it not been Lesnar, which I agree with you, I think Brock Lesnar is a beast. He would be a perfect, if the Undertaker picked him to end the streak, then I'm cool with that. I think it will give Lesnar a storyline for the rest of his career, besides being youngest heavyweight champion, UFC champion, NFL player, NCAA champion. He's also the guy that beat the streak. If you could have put someone else in Lesnar's shoes, who would you have picked?
This is purely selfish when I say this. I would not want John Cena to beat the streak because you think that the fans were hostile last night. They would have probably burnt the Superdome to the ground if John Cena had broken the streak. The only person in my mind, and I would have said this prior to last night, I don't think that the only logical choice would have been Brock Lesnar, but the greatest choice to have ended the streak was the person who created the streak, and I think that would have been Vince McMahon. Um, he comes out, he talks about how that, over 21 years, no matter how much, he does, and he creates the network, and he creates the ring, and everything that the fans enjoy and love, he also created The Undertaker. And, through by hook or crook, what happens, Undertaker and Vince are in the ring, Undertaker's kind of dominating the whole match. Slowly but surely, all the people who had went up against the streak prior to, like obviously Big Boss Man couldn't be there, but other people that have broken the streak come out and start to beat up The Undertaker. It's no DQ, whatever. Finally, Vince breaks the streak, 1, 2, 3, and with help of everybody. And then that way the heat isn't just on one person. Right now the heat's all on Brock Lesnar. They all hate Brock Lesnar. But it would have been against Punk and Lesnar and every one of these people who went up against the streak. It's their fault that, that the streak ended. And I definitely think that would have been a great way to have ended the streak, because people wouldn't have looked at it as the streak ended. It would have looked like, oh my God, Undertaker got screwed out of it. He's still the greatest attraction at WrestleMania, blah, blah, blah. But that's the only way that I would see that going, because you can't have Cena, you can't have Bray. I guess the only other logical choice would have been Kane, just because of their history. You could have had a Kane Undertaker a match, and it would have went out okay. I don't think the fans would have been as mad if Kane defeated the streak either. But really, Vince McMahon to me is the only logical explanation that they could have done.
You just came up with the greatest finish of all time.
I appreciate that. I've been working on it for about 30 years, so.
If you were to ask me before the Lesnar, who should it have been, I would have given you two answers. I truly believe that there are only two people who could end the streak, and you mentioned McMahon. I will go a step further. I still think that CM Punk had been the guy could use that storyline for the rest of his life as a heel or face and use it in the right way. I still think there was a mistake there with that. One of those things too, I think it would help him too. If he'd have broken the streak last year, would he be gone right now? Would that have ignited the passion within him? But the other guy that I had said to some people in a conversation, the only person I think that should end the streak, and from what I read it could be possible, is The Undertaker himself. Because here's a guy who for the last, however many years he's, been The Undertaker, has had to live that persona day in and day out. Rarely took pictures with fans. Just now in the last maybe 10 years started not having to wear his gimmick out in public. He can wear like a t-shirt and jeans and whatnot. I think he himself, Mark Calloway, would have to be the guy to end the streak, because when you induct him in the Hall of Fame, which is going to happen, do you have, let him be Mark for the rest of his life. People will always call him The Undertaker, but let him just let him be himself. I mean, here's a guy who has lived the character for 25 years or so. Like let him be him, and I think that's something that he would appreciate, and maybe that's what this is all about. And I agree with the point you made too. Is the streak is just a number, but as he gets older, that predictability of, okay, well, here's this guy and at whatever age he is going against, say it's a young and up and comer who's like 25. Should Undertaker win that match? No, but is he going to? Yeah. I think he can do so many more things now, character-wise, and I would say my two picks would be The Undertaker himself, which kind of what it seems like from all the stories is he was the one who ended it himself, and then Punk as well, because like I said, that would be a moneymaker. Think of the merchandise, the whole 434 days as heavyweight champion, ended the streak, Paul Heyman guy, things like that. And the whole Undertaker Brock thing, you and we probably could talk about this for another 4 hours if we really wanted to, because there's so many things that you can do from it. We'll before we get our next small break, let's give a short little segment to the short little segment of the Divas match. I know that's your highlight of the night.
Yeah, the Vicky Guerrero Invitational Match.com / Bound for Glory, Kevin Nash. It was what sadly has become the norm for Divas matches at WrestleMania, if they are even on the card at all. And real quick, I just have to buzz back because I thought of something. The moment that The Undertaker came out to Limp Bizkit was the day that the streak died. So I don't want to hear I don't want to hear anything from any fan. He can just keep rolling right out of here. But as far as the Divas match, I thought because Daniel Bryan was possibly going to win the championship that we may see a new Divas champion as well, and that in the way of Brie Bella, because it could have been like a power couple, which I would have really enjoyed. Do I like AJ Lee? Absolutely. I think that she's doing good things for the Divas Championship. I just think it's almost a slap in the face for Lita to come out at the Hall of Fame and talk about how her and Trish Stratus headlined Raw. Now let that sink in for a second. They were the main event of Raw. And now the Divas don't get any real airtime, anything. I mean, they have the Total Divas show, but, I mean, come on. That's not necessarily showing the women as strong and powerful and all that stuff. So I think that it was what we've become accustomed to at Mania, and that's not necessarily a good thing. I would have much rather seen AJ Lee go against Naomi or go against Brie Bella. I mean, I would have even not minded her going against somebody like Tamina. They started to plant the seeds for that storyline. So for me, it was just kind of it was another CF, and I really wish that they would have done something different with it, because they had potential there to do something different. So
I think for me with the Divas, I've never been a big women's wrestling guy, and that's not a sexist thing in any way. But during the Trish and Lita days, these were athletes out there putting on good shows. There was a brief moment in Impact where Gail Kim and Madison Rayne and just from a couple years ago was bringing that style back, and Victoria. I think that there's a chance there now, and especially having a daughter getting ready to be born. Would I want my daughter to be the Sables of wrestling, or would I want her to look up to them? Not preferably. Would I want my daughter to want to be like Natalya, who I think is way underutilized? Would I want my daughter to be like a Paige, be like an Emma? Athletes. That's the thing. For me, if you want me to truly believe in the Divas division, A, get rid of that god-awful looking title belt.
Yeah.
Stop calling them divas, and let the athletes be athletes. Give me Natalya, Emma, Paige, bring back Awesome Kong, bring in Victoria, bring back Mickie James, Molly Holly. Give me, however many I just named there. Give me those as the women's division, and I'm sold. Yeah. I want to watch. I don't want to watch Alicia Fox win a title. I don't want to see the Bellas win a title. Are they athletic? I do think so. But, and once again, it's that legitimacy. Would a former supermodel, Summer Rae, or, somebody who's, up and coming new and young, should they win a title before or more often than a Natalya, who could work a broomstick and put on the best match of the night? That's just my opinion. But if Vince and the WWE want me to really take the Divas division serious, stop calling it Divas. Give me Natalya. Give me Paige. Give them 60 minutes, and I guarantee you'll see amazing. I love NXT because of their women's division. I think anytime Paige and Emma are on, I watch their matches just because of it's that true sport of professional wrestling.
Absolutely, and you're going to get people like Charlotte who are coming up through the ranks. That's Ric Flair's daughter.
Who
She's going
has
to
the
do.
worst? Who has the worst nickname in all of any business of
Yes,
nicknames? The dirtiest diva in the game? You
yes,
said
yes.
no. Horrible nickname.
Yeah, that's a terrible nickname that will haunt her probably forever. And I mean, I haven't seen a lot from, I saw a few matches from Sasha Banks, who is actually Snoop Dogg's cousin in real life. For all of you keeping track out there at home, there, Paige, Emma, Bailey, who I think they're trying to book as the female Eugene. I'm not 100% on this yet, but she just seems very, very strange and whatever. But yeah, I think that there are good times ahead for the Divas division, but it's trying to make sure that people care about. I mean, I think of myself as a diehard wrestling fan, and if somebody, a pro wrestler, whenever I was young, would have told me that I could have been a pro wrestler, I probably would have went to school for it. I feel bad for all those girls out there that are starting to watch it because they really like the show or whatever, and this is what they get as far as matches go. So I think that either they need to make the decision right now that women are just going to be valets and eye candy, or they need to decide, hey, listen, these women can do good things, so let's give them the time and let's make this happen. But they can't be in the middle because right now, unfortunately, like that's how it is. And you know what? Like I've met Summer Rae, she's very nice, and I've met Eva Marie, and that they're all fine and great, and I'm sure they're all wonderful human beings. But it's as far as wrestling ability goes, I just don't see it. So let them be valets and managers, but don't put them in the title picture because it's just not there. Like Paige got into the business because it's a family business and she wanted to wrestle.
Which
Like
there's a great YouTube documentary of her and her family, and it was actually filmed while she was doing her tryout. I just saw it on YouTube the other day randomly.
yeah.
It's definitely a big thing to watch.
Yeah, her former name was Brittany Knight, and her mom is a longtime Shimmer wrestler. Her father was a wrestler in England, so it's definitely something to watch. But those people got in the business because they wanted to wrestle, not because they thought that they could make some money and they would look good in shiny outfits. So to have some of these people that are out there wrestling, yeah, their talent pool for the Divas is running pretty shallow right now. But there are a few shining stars that they really need to get working with.
And we'll take a break real quick. You are watching the first live edition of the Sean Sarling Show, the sports podcast that we are doing our Wrestlemania recap for all of our wrestling fans that listen to the Sean Soderling Show. You can check it out on Facebook. Make sure to like the page. It's the Sean Soderling Show on Facebook. Shoot us a line on Twitter at Coach Soderling. We're experimenting with the whole YouTube podcast phenomenon and seeing how it works, seeing if it goes well, if it's something that everybody likes. Give us some comments. We have for today with our guest. My cousin Jonathon Benjamin, who's diehard wrestling fan. There is a group on Facebook, Pro Wrestling Marks, that we just posted our show in there for them to watch live, just like all of you are doing right now. There is a space on there where we want you to send in some questions. We'll get into that once we get done with the WrestleMania recap. We have just one more match to go through on that, but make sure to shoot us both questions on Twitter. He is at Limousine Riding as a tribute to the Nature Boy. Woo! Ric Flair. I feel like you have to woo anytime you mention his name.
Yes.
But you're listening to and watching the first ever live Sean Soderling Show right here on YouTube. And we want you to know that your business can be a part of the Sean Soderling Show just by emailing coachsoderling@gmail.com. Your business can be right here where we're talking right now and get your business the attraction of the Sean Soderling Show listeners. We've had a couple of shows so far. We've had some nice, awesome guests. Like we said, this week we have WWE. Actually, let me phrase that. We have pro wrestling superfan Jonathon Benjamin. Last week we had the stand-up comedian and Vine famous Dana Moon. We also have some more big names, even bigger names in the world of sports and entertainment. joining us on the Sean Sutherland Show, and I can't wait as this continues to go on. Make sure to follow both of us on Twitter. Get involved with this program on the Facebook page. Shoot us your questions there. And what we'll do is I'll give Jonathon a little bit. We've talked for a really long time. Is what we'll do is I'll give you 5 minutes if you need to go to the restroom, grab a drink or whatever. We'll be back here on the Sean Sutherland Show in 5 minutes where we're going to wrap up the WrestleMania recap. We're going to talk the Hall of Fame. We'll answer your questions and just talk about everything else that's going on in professional sports. So we'll give it 5 minutes. I've got that it's currently 12:50 in Indiana Central Time. We'll be back here at 12:55 Central Time for the Sean Sutherland Show. Until then, enjoy the view of this bedroom. Actually, it's the office. I promise it's the office. See, it's the office. Everybody's, yeah, it's the office. It's the office. We'll be back. 5 minutes, Sean Sutherland Show. I'm going to go let out the dog. Frank, are you ready? You good? You good to go, Frank? Yeah? Okay. Our producer of the show, Frank, good job, bud. You're such a good person, Frank. You do such a great job. Welcome back to the live edition of the Sean Sarling Show right here on YouTube. Something different that we're trying. If it works, let us know. This is definitely and I've noticed I say the word definitely on a lot of the show so far. This is something that we want to try. We want to get more viewer interaction, and I'm sure that on a Monday at 1 o'clock we probably won't get much, but maybe it's something that we do in the evenings. For future references. I really like the whole live podcast and the video. You get to see us. You get to be a part of it as well. Please go back on Facebook and make sure to like the page. It's The Sean Soderling Show. On there, you can listen to last week's episode where we talked to Vine famous stand-up comedian Dana Moon about the NCAA tournament, her life as a comedian, and amongst other things in sports as superstitions. Currently, we have my cousin Jonathon Benjamin, pro wrestling super fan extraordinaire, on the show with us. You know, speaking of professional sports and fan superstitions, do you have any superstitions? Like, is there a specific wrestling shirt you have to wear, or what is your? Do you have any type of professional wrestling superstition?
You know, it's one of those things that I'm very adamant about. You will very rarely see me wearing a professional wrestling shirt at a live show. I almost feel like it's not necessarily a superstition, but I just feel like it's uncool, if you will. I just like to wear, and I also like to wear a lot of not the unlicensed, but the alternate or alternative wrestling shirts. There's all those different stores, Squared Circle dot merch, I think. There's Barbershop Tees, Barbershop Window. There's Turnbuckle Tees. All these different places. They're putting a lot of different shirts out there that are really cool. So maybe that's one of my superstitions, is just to not. I did dress up as Brodus Clay at a house show not too long ago. I'm not saying I'm proud of it, but I did. That did happen. I'm not the Brodus Clay guy or anything like that. But so yeah, I don't know. I don't have so many superstitions as just quirks, I guess I would call them.
All right, and speaking of. You know, because this is the Sean Sarling Show, the sports podcast for everyone, no matter who they are, where they are, whatever they are. You're in Connecticut. Have you watched any of the basketball tournament?
I have. I've watched a little bit of it, and lots of people were very excited and continue to be about UConn basketball. And so you've seen a lot of UConn shirts going around, and a lot of people that talk about it that typically don't talk about it. So. It's exciting. It's always exciting.
Such as yourself, like, because you're not really a big or you're not really a big sports guy.
No, I'm not a huge sports guy. Whether it's been you or my brother, who are very, very diehard sports fans, I've always had it kind of put out there for me, but I just never really latched on. And I think I was talking to you earlier about it. Is just the fact that I can't keep it all straight. I can't keep MVPs and draft picks and who's there and who's what. I have enough time with professional wrestling, so and as I get older, that's even harder to do. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why I don't feel like I can give it the attention that it deserves. But you guys are all crazy for being able to do that. I mean, my brother was in Milwaukee for the opening day for the Braves, and he's from Indiana, so it's just crazy. You guys you're nuts. You're all nuts.
Will you watch the game like on delay tonight? Obviously, because it'll be the same time during Raw.
Yeah, definitely on delay. I will end up watching it just because it's exciting, but I'll probably take the abridged version. I may watch SportsCenter and just see what happens.
Well, let's continue on. We've got one match to talk about from WrestleMania. That was the main event, the triple threat match, featuring one Dave Batista, Randy Orton, and the winner from the opening match, Daniel Bryan. For me, I still think you would have gotten the same reaction had you went with Bryan versus Orton. Yeah. I think you would have gotten the same reaction had you just done Batista versus Orton, or Batista versus Bryan. I didn't feel the need for it to be a triple threat match. I felt like they could have told the same story using any other guy along with Daniel Bryan. There were parts of the match where there was a lot of one-on-one action, and that was when I really felt that my opinion was strong. about that it should have just been a one-on-one match. Because with this type of matches, you're going to have that thing now of I believe Batista took the fall, if I remember correctly. Um, and so now you've got this of, are we going to get 2 more months of Randy Orton? Well, I never lost. I was never pinned. I would have liked to have seen Bryan one-on-one with Orton, so that way, all the SummerSlam jazz and the Night of Champions jazz, all that, like, you can finally put that to rest by just having those two guys go one-on-one.
Absolutely, and I think that there's somewhat of a stigma for triple threat matches, and I think that stigma is that WWE doesn't have enough faith in just 2 people wrestling, that they feel like they have to throw that third person in. So Orton versus Bryan may not have got enough buy rates, but Orton, Bryan, and Batista will definitely bump up the ratings, because it's almost like a presidential campaign. So you've got Republicans and you got Democrats, but guess what happens is they split the vote. But if you throw in a third party like a libertarian or whatever, now that it gets split 3 ways. And I think that that's what happens with these matches, is that they throw Batista in and fans are like, oh, well, I like Batista, so I'm going to be genuinely excited about this, or I like Orton, or I like Bryan. But you look back at some of the triple threats that have been at Mania. You had Cena versus Big Show versus Edge. At WrestleMania 20, you had Triple H versus Shawn versus Benoit. Yes, I just said that. Do not adjust your listening device. I think that what happens is that you try harder to have a good match, and I think that that's what you were saying is, it could have been Orton versus Bryan. I don't feel like Batista necessarily added much to the match. I think that what you got is somewhat of like the classic Karate Kid ending with Daniel Bryan on the stretcher, and he's like, no, I can still do this, and he rolls off the stretcher, and it was a good match, but I definitely think that it would have been just as strong as a one-on-one match. And then, like you said, you would have got the clean, that's it, the clean break from the storyline. But for all of those people that were not happy with Brock Lesnar, I find it hard to believe that you were not happy with that, but then you were happy with, Batista. A lot of fans were booing him when he was back, but you know what? Like, Batista prior to his right before he quit and he had that feud with John Cena in 2010, like, that's the first time that Batista really had my attention. Prior to that, he was just like the Muscle in Evolution, and he was, Deacon Batista and all that stuff. But when he started talking about John Cena kissing babies and hugging fat chicks, like that was like, you got to see part of his actual
Persona.
Yeah, absolutely. And you saw some of that at the press conference if you didn't see that live on the WWE Network. He was Dave Batista at what I think is his best. So I feel a little cheated that we don't get more of that, but maybe he'll still stick around for a while. I don't know. But, the outcome, we did see Daniel Bryan win. There was a huge celebration for him. Fireworks, confetti, the works. I do believe that was his sister, if you watch the Wrestling Road Diaries, and his, I would assume it's his niece that came into the ring with him afterwards. It was just a great moment. Like I said, the build's been big, it's been long, and it's the everyman. You feel like you accomplished something walking away from this last night. So do I think that it could have been done differently? Absolutely. But do I think that what happened was great? Yeah, I think it was a great way to finish WrestleMania.
With the slow burn of the story, did it water down the main event for you?
The only way it watered down the main event was the fact that the thing that the part of the story already got resolved within the first match, because now, Triple H is no longer really a part of this deal. So he did come out the end and try to get involved, but I felt like Daniel Bryan's beef with the Authority was over, because even though Randy Orton was kind of playing the kiss ass or whatever, and then Batista was kind of the anti-Authority too, that part of it really, it was their own issues at that point, and it didn't really have much to do with the previous angle. So Yeah, I feel like it did get kind of watered down, and maybe they should have really reiterated the fact that was happening. I almost thought that the match was going to start without Daniel Bryan, and then he was going to come down to the ring.
Yeah.
I also thought at one point maybe the first match between Batista or Triple H and Bryan ended as like a double DQ or a double count out or whatever, and regardless, they both enter the match, and it then becomes a fatal four-way, and then that would have kept it all the loose ends tied up. So we didn't get that, but like I said, the story seemed a little bit, needing some loose ends being tied up. But Daniel Bryan ultimately wins the WWE Championship, and that's what we wanted. So
Let's go into prediction time. Where does Daniel Bryan go for here?
I hope that from here he gets some strong feuds. I mean, obviously they're going to have to add Extreme Rules, which I'll be at next month. He's going to have to go against Randy Orton for his rematch clause. So after that, I hope that he goes on to fight people that people look up against, or want him to go up against. I want to see, a Cena match with him. I want to see him cleanly win against Cena. I want to see him go against even Sheamus. I mean, people really dog on Sheamus, and I think that he gets a bad rap, but I think that Sheamus is putting on, like, his matches against Orton and Del Rio are actually really good matches. So I want to see him go against every top guy that the WWE has, and I want to see him go on like a world tour where he's a fighting champion and he's just proving people wrong. And no matter who they put in front of him, whether it be Big Show, Sheamus, Kane, Undertaker, whoever they put in front of him, I want him to get clean victories over, because I want Daniel Bryan to be remembered as a great champion.
Almost, we mentioned earlier, it's that Bret Hart story. I mean, think when Hart won the title from Flair, I mean, he was going up against everyone, and he never wrestled the same guy twice on TV.
No.
And we bring the L word back up again, legitimacy. I think you have to. I'm sick and tired. And I don't want to call myself a casual fan, because I do watch as much as I can. But I can understand from the casual fan, how many world champions have there been in the last 5 years?
Yeah.
We can't even count on them. I remember days where when you were world champion for like a year, 2 years. And so I hope that I'm just worried that he's going to lose the title within the next couple of months, because they're going to be like, oh, well, Triple H has been noted as saying that there is no better story than the chase.
Yeah.
For the good guy, and I'm scared of where they're going. Will I watch still? Yeah. But I'm concerned for how they'll build him, because I don't want this to be. I don't want Daniel Bryan's title run to be the same as Rey Mysterio's.
Yeah. The two things that come from what you're saying. The one thing that I really wish is that Vince would buy the rights to Europe's The Final Countdown. I think that should be Daniel Bryan's theme.
Yes, and, agreed. I've been screaming that for years.
They should bring that back. I mean, they bought the Cult of Personality for CM Punk, so why not Europe's The Final Countdown? But number two, the thing that has me the most nervous is the thing that Triple H said. Fandangoing. I was there last year, a year ago today, when Fandangoing was all the rage, and I fandangoed, and the whole thing. I don't want Daniel Bryan to be a passing craze or a trend, but what happens and what bothers me to no end is last night during your final match, you have the triple threat match, and people are yesing and they're really getting into it, but then there's this rogue group of fans that start chanting for CM Punk, and those fans then jeopardize everything, because you guys all cheered for Daniel Bryan. You wanted to put him in this position. He's now in this position, and before he even wins the title, you're cheering for CM Punk, a person that no doubt left the company because they were unhappy with the position that they were in. So you keep cheering for that person, and Daniel Bryan's going to be a flash in the pan. Like, I appreciate the fact that you paid your money to get in, and you can chant and say whatever you want to do, but The same thing happened whenever Bray Wyatt came out and people were chanting Husky Harris. It does nothing but just make problems because you're trying to hijack the show and you think it's great and wonderful and funny. There's a difference between fandangoing and chanting Johnny Curtis or, like chanting for, Mean Mark Calloway or
Or chanting Thurman Sparky Plug.
Well, that one you had coming. I do have to say, even though I feel like I had more to do with that than you did, but
that was all you. That was all you, and I took the brunt of it.
You did, but it was a great moment for all of us. So I hope that's on the network someday. But yeah, I think that to cheer for CM Punk whenever you guys are all wanting Daniel Bryan to be in that main event, and he's there. And we got him there. We all got him there. You're buying the T-shirts and you're yesing and you're, it's an amazing thing. But if not done properly, then that's what's going to happen. He's going to be a flash in the pan champion, and he doesn't deserve that. He definitely has the chops to be a great champion, and that's why I said I want to put him against everybody that you can to make people believe that he's great.
He spoke of the people having a voice because the company listened and they put him in the main event at Mania. And you got to think that the fans out there who watch the shows religiously and they watch every single original show that's on the network, now they feel like they have some power. Do you think that this whole hijacking thing, because, I mean, obviously, I think people will chant CM Punk until he does show back up.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because he was the one who kind of gave way to the, hey, they're not listening to you. But, if we make enough noise, they will listen. And I kind of feel that the whole Daniel Bryan victory is maybe some fans viewing this as, oh, well, they're going to listen to me. So, all right, well, and wrestling goes in fads, too. I think the whole yesing thing, because even the what died out as time has went on. I personally, I think that people will see this now as, okay, yes, we are the voice. They will listen to us. Well, we got what we wanted in Daniel Bryan. Look, we got him where he's at. Now I really want CM Punk. And I think because also those two are so close and so tight that they're always going to be acknowledged with one another, guilty by association.
Yep.
You can always talk about Daniel Bryan all you want, but you're always going to mention CM Punk. Or you talk CM Punk, you're always going to mention Daniel Bryan. So I think it's inevitable that both those guys are within that category. And I would see Daniel Bryan as being a guy that, and with some fans last night chanting CM Punk, I could almost see him not being upset at that, because I'm sure he would, that would have been, for me, as a guy who used to pay $10 to see those guys wrestle in armories, and we talked about this earlier, and I mentioned this last night to my friends that came over. For me, I'm such a big CM Punk fan, Daniel Bryan fan, Antonio Cesaro fan, because I've watched these guys literally work for $10 in an armory or a high school gym somewhere. I just know that people just paid $70 a pop to watch them at Wrestlemania. For me, I would have had no greater joy than to see Punk and Bryan at the end there. For me, it would have resembled Benoit and Guerrero, because I viewed that as the big middle finger to the big bodybuilder type guys. Because, hey, look, here's two smaller guys who have good work ethics, good work rates, great in the ring, can make anybody look good. They had the moment at WrestleMania 20 at the end to kind of say, we're both on top of the game, follow that, to steal a quote.
Yes.
I think that Bryan himself would have wanted Punk there. And I think Bryan does want Punk there, because I think you could give me, and I've said this before, give me a full year, every main event of every pay-per-view, Punk versus Bryan, build the story up on every episode of Raw and SmackDown, and they only actually wrestle on pay-per-views. You will have the greatest storyline in a full year and the biggest payoff at the end at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and selfishly, once again, I want Punk to be back, because I think he does good for not only himself but for the entire company. I just feel like it's somewhat disrespectful, like I was saying, just because I think that Daniel Bryan, it's his time now, and he is there, and he's putting up. But do I want to see those two wrestle? Absolutely. I think that you put it perfectly with the big FU to the bodybuilder types, and that's as time goes on, I think Triple H sees that more than Vince did. Uh, Most of the guys, like great talents, like laugh if you want, Billy Kidman, Dean Malenko, like even I'm not a huge Rey Mysterio fan, but I mean just the fact that these guys are smaller than average, and like it gives you a chance to get behind them on a different level. Before like Randy Orton is just like an unbelievable athlete, but like you look at him and he looks like he's fake. Like, but you look at some of these guys like Daniel Bryan and you just look at him and say, wow, like I could be that guy. So I said it before and I said it again. I think that's what's great about this reality era, because you see these things and it's almost as is. You see that people are upset because Daniel Bryan won because he's small, but you also see that the majority are happy that he won because he's small. So I think that the best way, like I'll just keep saying it, is that have him go against the world. Daniel Bryan. There's another quarter.
Quarter in the jar.
Quarter in the jar. Daniel Bryan versus the world should be this from here to even next year's WrestleMania. And if next year you want to have Bryan versus Punk, that's great with me too. But I would put Daniel Bryan versus the world. That's how I would book that.
Do you go the old school route and book him in Japan? And have him, bring back the super shows.
I think that's great. I think that even if they don't do it on like live television or whatever, just having his name out there and having him. I think in May, or no, it's got to be between June and July. They're going back over to England and Italy and all this stuff, and I think it's great. Give him the best competition in the world for people to see, and everybody's going to win from that, because they just signed Prince Devitt. If you guys are familiar, he's
who also happens to be a huge soccer fan. Going back to the whole being able to talk to these wrestlers on Twitter, Devitt is a big soccer guy.
And these guys like Pac or Adrian Neville, if you will, like all these guys are from the. I mean, it's not just Americans anymore. It's everywhere. It's all over the world. And you've got right now people like Kali from India. You've got Jinder Mahal. You've got Rusev. You've got all these people that are not just from America. So put Daniel Bryan against anybody and everybody, and he's going to take the ball and he's going to try to run with it. And that's why I think it would be very interesting to have him go against, even if it's only one night. Like, okay, we're in Italy, so bring in somebody that's very from that area, or England or wherever, and have him go against him and just show people what Daniel Bryan can do.
I think too, for me, and I get caught doing this a lot, which I'm sure you do as well. When I meet people who are WWE fans and they've just become WWE fans, I feel the need that I have to be the historical guy and tell them, oh, you're a big Daniel Bryan fan. Oh, you need to watch Bryan Danielson on YouTube. Or you're a big CM Punk fan. Oh, check out his IWA stuff and ROH stuff on YouTube. Can you successfully build Bryan in the future, here upcoming, without, and I don't want to use the word bury because that's not what I'm doing. Can you build him up while keeping others, without keeping others down? Because if you do book him against the world, say you bring up a Neville or a Rusev, unfortunately you're going to have to sacrifice bringing them up against him in order to get that him versus the world.
I feel like it's a means to an end, though, because everybody it's like Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels, they said you can put him in the match against a broomstick or whatever, or a ladder. Like, people say, as good as Scott Hall is, now a Hall of Famer, as good as Scott Hall is, everyone said that at WrestleMania 10 that Shawn Michaels went out there and had a match with a ladder. No matter how good Razor Ramon was, Scott Hall. So I think that you're going to have that no matter who Daniel Bryan goes against. They're going to say that. And I've heard certain wrestlers before say that certain wrestlers are so good that they want them to make a mistake every now and then because people look at it and think, oh, wow, anybody can do that. It's just so easy. And that's how Daniel Bryan is. You don't see him as, like, ever making a mistake. And I think that, yeah, you're going to have to sacrifice some people, but they're going to get something out of it. If you put Daniel Bryan against Sami Zayn, it's going to be an amazing match. Sami's going to lose, but
he's going to be
yeah,
a star out of it.
Yeah, he's going to be made a star out of it, and that's the whole thing. Like with the streak, like you put Undertaker against Shawn Michaels. A few people thought Shawn Michaels was going to win, but at the end of the day, they both walked away looking fantastic out of that match.
Do you, and this actually just popped in my head, I think, I'll ask this question, but I would like to see you and I, once a month if we can, we'll do a special edition Sean Sarlin show, and it will be fantasy booking. And
I'm down.
We'll have people send us suggestions, maybe give us like one wrestler to make, or what would we do in this case. And I think if we were able to do that, you and I could put on a good like 2-hour clinic of fantasy booking, just like the two of us bouncing ideas and then writing a story. But something I did want to get into is, play the role of the fantasy booker. You talked about Daniel Bryan versus the world. If you're the ones in charge, you get to be a McMahon, your biggest dream come true.
Yes.
Who do you bring in? And why do you bring them? You mentioned the Fergal Devitt's. You mentioned the Adrian Nevilles. Why? Who do you bring in and why? Just a couple off the bat. Who would be the first opponents you would bring in for him?
The first opponent doesn't really make sense because of the whole versus the world, unless you're just saying that he's going against everybody in the world. This guy is a supreme athlete. He has never been in WWE, which is unbelievable to me. He is one of the greatest talents in the world of professional wrestling, and that's Austin Aries. I have Austin Aries going against Daniel Bryan any day of the week, and it's going to be amazing.
It's so weird to think that he got cut from Tough Enough before it even got on TV.
Yeah, and the winner of Tough Enough is no longer even around, and the only person that made it in Tough Enough is the person that said that their favorite match of all time is Melina versus Alicia Fox. So that's a really good gauge of how much Tough Enough actually meant to the company. I think that Austin Aries versus Daniel Bryan is just as good as Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk. It's just as good as but you know what? You start doing that, and you're gonna have to start. It can't just be like Daniel Bryan versus the Big Show, because once he beats the Big Show, then it makes it look like he can beat anybody, and he is smaller. So I think you start the build with some of these smaller guys. Have him go against Seth Rollins, the former Tyler Black. Have him go against people like Dean Ambrose. These are people he's familiar with. These are people he's comfortable with. Cesaro. These are the people that I want to see him go against. I do want to see him go against Austin Aries for selfish reasons, absolutely. But
you're the booker here. You unlimited funds. You can get who you want.
Yeah, after you go with that, I want to see him go against Kurt Angle. And there's nothing in this world that I would like to see more than that. If I had a time machine, I would say, yeah, put him against Bret Hart. But, that's just not going to happen. But definitely Kurt Angle, give him Austin Aries. There's a lot of guys like in Ring of Honor that I would put him up against. I would like to see him. AJ Styles would be good, but, I don't know that that's something that you need. AJ's a great talent and stuff, but I think he's probably going to end up winding down here before long. But people, the up-and-comers like Mike Bennett, I don't know if anybody are familiar with him.
Prodigy.
The Prodigy, Mike Bennett. Even former Spirit Squad member Mike Mondo, he's doing big things. I would put him against. I like Joey Ryan a lot. These are all people that they could stand to lose against Daniel Bryan, but to get their name out there would be huge. Like I said, Sami Zayn, Adrian Neville, those are definitely people that I want to see him go against. I I just think that there's so much room out there. We talked about Roman Reigns being a blank canvas, but now this is the time that Daniel Bryan, there's no denying what he used to do, the independent circuit and all that stuff. But he right now has a chance to either leave that behind and just be like strictly a WWE guy, or give a nod back to that and go against these people that it's almost like the WWE gave Daniel Bryan a chance to be a major star, so now Daniel Bryan can give these younger talents a chance to be stars as well.
And hitting that point, I would love to see. And I don't know how many people have seen these matches, but I was a huge fan of the Danielson Moxley matches in Evolve or Dragon Gate, whichever Gabe promotion was running that month. I think that the chance is there to make new stars with him, and I agree with you of it's a chance for him to make the guys who help make him. I think if I could. Oh man, I'd use Ambrose. I think you've got money there between him and Bryan. I think you've got money with Bryan and Rollins. I think you've got money with Bryan Cesaro. You give me those two guys for 6 months, and I'll watch every show. But and for me, I understand him being a WWE guy, Daniel Bryan, but I really think to get even more fans behind Bryan is that they've got to embrace the independent scene that he had. How you talked about, they should have showed the UFC interview with Lesnar and Undertaker to add to that. I think they need to show the Ring of Honor clips of Daniel Bryan. They need to show him in England and Germany and New Japan Wrestling as the American Dragon. They need to show those to really tell the story, because you can sit here and tell me, oh, he's the underdog, he's the underdog, he's the underdog, but you're telling me that it's just that because of his height. You're not telling us truly that it's because he wrestled in high school gymnasiums. He's wrestled in armories. He's wrestled around the world. He's wrestled in front of 100-something thousand people at the Tokyo Dome. So in order to really book him the right way, tell the whole story of his past and build off of that and say, here's some of the guys that he worked with in the past, and slowly insert those guys in. Maybe do like a Daniel Bryan highlight show him versus Tyler Black, and then all of a sudden on that show you get Seth Rollins versus Bryan Danielson, or Daniel Bryan. I'm going to watch, but I'm really scared of which way they'll go. Are they going to make him, to use the term, paper champion? I hope he's not a transitional champion. I hope that they allow him to go like none other. I don't know. I do wonder where they'll go. I wonder too about, and a casual fan made this comment last night. The beard and hair is, it's okay, but is it overdone? Can he truly now? Can he go back to the short hair, maybe a short beard, or anything else? Can they do something? Can he recreate himself now?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the $10 million question is, do they have confidence in him, or do they have confidence in his character? And that's what it boils down to, because they know that they can make money off of the shirts, the respect the beard, the mask, the goat, the whole goat thing, but can they just make money off of Daniel Bryan?
And I think they can, but it's, for me, once again, I think to encourage him for the future, you've got to embrace his past. And I know that they want people to forget who Bryan Danielson was, but the hardcore fans, we're not going to be able to forget that.
No.
And this is, again, something that we can go on for another 4 hours about. But you are tuned in right now to the first live edition of the Sean Soderling Show, the sports podcast for everyone, no matter who you are, where you are, whatever you are. We're just glad that you're listening and participating. And we are here with pro wrestling super fan Jonathon Benjamin here with us. And we're dabbing into the pro wrestling side because last night the one show that everyone knows. You may not be a pro wrestling fan, but you know what WrestleMania is. And last night was WrestleMania 30, always an anniversary for every 10 years, a big show which featured the likes of The Rock and Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold Steve Austin at the very beginning of the show. We had some new guys be made last night with Antonio Cesaro winning. We also had Bray Wyatt was really made even in defeat to John Cena. But one of the cool things of the night is always at WrestleMania, the Hall of Fame. And we saw some inductees on Saturday night. Now, I personally did not get to watch the Hall of Fame ceremony. And so this is where I'll probably need a little bit of your help. I read some recaps.
Yes.
The Hall of Fame, and I've actually gotten a lot of questions on Twitter, at Coach Soderling. He's at Limousine Riding. Follow both of us. Shoot us your questions. Like us on Facebook, The Sean Soderling Show, Pro Wrestling Marks for the group, and shoot us the questions that you have, because we want to talk Hall of Fame here. Did the 2014 class seem lightweight, or the beginning of future lightweight classes? Because you have Warrior now, you've already got Hogan, you've got Flair in twice, and I know that you and I will probably in this next segment come up with all these names that need to be in it. Is the Hall of Fame starting to be watered?
What you have is the fact that I feel like, once again, they wanted to legitimize a product or a brand. So the Hall of Fame, the very first inductee was Andre the Giant. They did one inductee, and that was in 1993. From there, they put people in the likes of Pat Patterson, Vince McMahon Sr., the list goes on and on and on. Around the time they put in Hogan, they also put in Orndorff, they put in Piper, they put in, all these names that are huge, huge marquee names. So now, like last year, Bruno Sammartino, Mick Foley. These are people that I feel are rushed. I feel like that not Bruno Sammartino necessarily, but Mick Foley. Was it great to see him inducted? Absolutely. Do I think that Trish Stratus deserves to be in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely. I do think that WWE sometimes is afraid that people will pass away or whatever, and so they have to do it sooner than later. The fact that we're going to have, Stone Cold's in, Edge is in, these are people that we grew up watching, but they're relatively young. So I think they need to hold their horses a little bit on who they're putting in, but there's a never-ending supply of people that they could put in, and this year's class felt good because it was a mix of like nostalgia and current people. But I would maybe limit the number that goes in every year. I would put in maybe 3 to 4 people instead of 6 or 8 or however many ever, and I would maybe do a guideline. Maybe it's a female, a male, and a tag team. That male could be a manager, a referee, whatever they want to do, but I would do something along those lines so you don't run the well dry. Because before too long, you may see people like, I don't know, Paul Roma, the Godfather. Do they deserve to be in the WWE Hall of Fame? No, they don't. But will they be because they're running out of names? Absolutely. At some point, you will see the many phases of Charles Wright, whether it be Kama Mustafa, Papa Shango, and his contributions are undeniable. But is he the caliber of people that need to be put in the Hall of Fame? No, not really. So sorry, Charles, if you're watching, or Paul Roma.
So what was, like I said, I didn't get to catch the Hall of Fame. I just read some reviews on it. What were some highlights for you?
Highlights for me right off the bat was Jake the Snake Roberts. He's one of those people that he's never won a Royal Rumble, never won a championship in the WWE. Like, if I told you that about somebody else, then you would say, well, why do I care about this person? But he's Jake Roberts. He's one of those people that if you ever saw him live, you just felt that it factor that they talk about. He's one of those people, along with Piper, that can actually talk you into the building. I didn't need to know if he could wrestle or not. I just wanted to hear what he had to say. And Jake Roberts has had many, many personal struggles with drugs and alcohol, and I think this is the crown jewel for him. He is in the Hall of Fame. It shows that people care. It shows that, all of his life wasn't wasted, even though he doesn't remember a lot of it. That was probably the highlight for me, even more so than Warrior. I felt like Warrior was, he's put his dues in, and he's definitely deserved it. But for me, Jake the Snake Roberts was the headliner in that class.
From what I've read, is his speech was the best of all time.
Yeah, it was really good. It put your, it put perspective out there, because Warrior was there, and what he was saying made you feel like he was a little bitter towards the business. And Jake Roberts is that person. He's the person that never held a championship in the WWF. He was never King of the Ring. He was never even though he was going against guys like Hogan, he was going against guys like Warrior. And dare I say, if there wasn't Jake the Snake Roberts and people like that, there wouldn't be these guys, because they have to do their part to make somebody big. So for me, yeah, Jake Roberts was definitely the speech of the night.
You spoke of Warrior, and you, like I said, you watched the broadcast. It seemed like, from the details of his speech, is you could have almost called the Hall of Fame the self-defense of the Warrior, compared to his DVD of the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior.
Wow, that's another hashtag right there.
Do you feel that because from what, like I said, from the reviews I read, he really hit home the points of, like, he did mention a couple times, like, this is what was said about me, but really fought for himself and almost, turned people's thoughts of him than they previously had.
Absolutely. I mean, if Triple H is going to get inducted in the Hall of Fame someday, obviously, if he's up there and he's saying, everybody said that I buried talent and everybody was mad about me and blah, 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 like, that just almost comes across as, like, whiny. And to me, that's somewhat of what the Ultimate Warrior did. He came out and he talked, and there was a lot of history, and I appreciate that. But the fact that he had to sit up there as being, at one time, the biggest draw in that company, and you're going to sit there and say, oh, they said, it just was really hurt. It really hurt my feelings. I don't know that there was a place for that in the Hall of Fame. And once again, he can say whatever he wants. And I met the guy. He's a nice guy, and what he said about when fans come up and tell him thank you, he turns it right around and says, no, thank you. He did that. He absolutely did that to me. But something about it, Jake, like I said, Jake's got lots of, and he caused a lot of this himself. But, Jake Roberts is a guy that, he definitely is not your stereotypical person that should have made as big of an impact on this business as he did, but he did. And, he's there, and he fessed up, and he took a lot of responsibility for his own actions, whereas Warrior didn't say, like, yeah, I was probably a jerk, or I kind of came off as, like, having a big ego or anything. He said, no, I was the nicest guy ever, and I gave respect to the people who deserved respect, and blah, 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 but then still wanted you to feel sorry for him. So, yeah, I think that his was kind of a little on the whiny side, absolutely.
Part of me backs the Warrior, because, okay, here's this company that I generated how much profit for.
Yeah.
Here's this company that, it's one of those things where people who are our age or older, they may have not been a Hulk Hogan fan, they may not have been a Ric Flair fan, but they were Ultimate Warrior fans. Yes. And there's more people who don't watch professional wrestling who know who the Ultimate Warrior is than what people think. There's people always say, well, everyone knows who Ric Flair is, everyone knows who Hulk Hogan is, but everyone knows who the Ultimate Warrior is. And maybe it's just the personal side of me, but if I'm him, I am using that platform, because this company who I helped make all this money for puts out a DVD to make money bashing me when, you and I were not there. We don't know the stories. Yeah. We can only go off of what we're told here. And for that company to now be like, we want you in the Hall of Fame. Like, if I'm him, whether it's, the monetary value of it or whatever the deal is out of it, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, here's a company who purposefully made a DVD hinting all of my weaknesses, and whether it was true or false, whatever, and now they want me to be the center stage of their thing. I think it was justified, because if the WWE with their DVD series and their shows, they want you to believe what they tell you. So, like we said earlier, there's no such thing as Bryan Danielson. There's only Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
I think that they want these current fans from our age and younger. They want, before this whole Hall of Fame thing happened, they wanted people to understand that Ultimate Warrior was not a good guy. Like, he had this perception about him that he was the man, but he was such a jerk and things like that. I feel it was justified for him to clear his name of, like we said, whether the stories about him are true or false. He did help generate a profit. He made a lot of money for that company, and I like the fact that he came to his defense for this younger generation who doesn't know who he is. Because if the younger generation, they are like, oh, who's the Ultimate Warrior? They go through the DVDs. Oh, the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. Well, I wonder what that is. I want to watch this. And they see that, and it's like, wow, like, this guy was horrible.
Yeah.
So I felt like he was justified in whether you want to call it whining or not. But I think a guy, for him to clear his name, he's at the age, he probably doesn't want any drama, any worries, and he wants the young fans to know who the Ultimate Warrior is, just like their parents or their aunts and uncles. So I felt like he was justified in it.
Yeah, he definitely now has a clearer name. They just put out another Ultimate Warrior DVD where he actually gets to talk and explain a little bit more. So, ultimately, I don't know why that DVD came out in the first place. I do know that he's obviously outspoken quite often about how he doesn't like that DVD.
I think it's one of the worst decisions they actually. Let me phrase it. I think it's the worst decision they ever made as a company.
And
like,
I don't.
Why would you do that?
I don't know if there was a lot more going on. Like, maybe they tried to get him in the Hall of Fame and he refused or whatever. And then so Vince was like, "I'll show him. I'm going to make this DVD or whatever," because he was clearly a part of it. He talked quite often in the DVD. So I don't think it was just someone like, hey, I got an idea. Let's make a DVD about how crazy the Ultimate Warrior is. I think that it was a calculated move on somebody's part. So, but now, what's done's done. He's now in the Hall of Fame. He does deserve to be in there. I definitely think that he should be part of the Hall of Fame. So it was very interesting, and but that was not the most interesting speech of the Hall of Fame. So I don't know how much you heard about it, but I'll let you just take a little guess as whose speech was the most interesting.
I'm going to go on and say that from what I've read, the best talker of the night was Carlito.
Carlito was absolutely wonderful.
Just from his insider jokes and kind of I guess putting himself down. But I've heard a lot of negatives about Lita's speech.
They gave Lita the opening, and she was able to talk for about 45 minutes. I think that this comes from a classic case of she had a bunch of things that she wanted to say but didn't exactly know how to get them all out. But she was talking, and I legitimately saw her sitting there, and then the music played, and she wasn't expecting it. So I think they cut her off. She had thanked a lot of people like A Steel and people at the Steel Domain. It was interesting to hear about how she got into professional wrestling and stuff like that. It was a good speech. But once again, you have to want to know about those things. If you're just a casual fan turning it on, you're going to say, wow, she's talking a long time. But, I mean, she did. We talked earlier about her and Trish main eventing Raw. That's a big deal. And, she broke her neck and she came back. And it's a huge thing. She got to finally give people some credit that maybe didn't know that she, struggled through the business. She gave Arn Anderson credit. She gave Rey Mysterio credit. Stone Cold Steve Austin. These are people that you don't ever get to hear about being instrumental in other people's career. Like Stone Cold and her flew to Dr. James Youngblood down in, or Dr. James Andrews, sorry, I'm thinking of it, Jay Youngblood. James Andrews and Stone Cold actually went with her to talk about getting her neck, fixed. I mean, that's a huge deal. So it was a little scattered, maybe is the best way that I could describe it. But I mean, it's amazing that she got to be in the Hall of Fame and tell those stories. But she got cut off because of time constraints or whatever. And like Carlos Colon, I don't speak Spanish, but he spent half of his speech talking in Spanish, and that makes sense because he has lots of Spanish-speaking friends and fans. So, but ultimately, the thing that I've been skirting around and not talking about is the now infamous Mr. T speech, which I don't know what you read, but I'd be interested to hear what you read about that.
Apparently, he loves his mother.
Yes.
And that's really a lot of the stuff that I've read. That's really all they mention. I guess he also was cut off by Kane.
By Kane, yes.
But yeah, I got the premise of that he loves his mother and that everything that Rowdy Piper has said about him was true.
He didn't say. He said one thing about, like, he said it's an honor to be inducted in here, and talked about, that was pretty much it. And then he said, "Can I have 1 to 2 minutes to talk about my mother?" And for the next 30 minutes, all he did was talk about his mom and how she was great, and he gets a special feeling when he talks about her, and that they shared a urinary tract at one point that was discussed. I have a guy by the name of Phil Strum who writes for a newspaper. At one point I looked, and he had said that he had counted, or somebody had counted, that he said the word mother or mama 70 times in his speech. So that is a nightmare. And this is the risk you run when you get celebrities inducted into the Hall of Fame. I do believe that there's a place for these people to be inducted, but someone should have talked to him beforehand and said, "Okay, what are you going? Let's just maybe run through what you're going to say a little bit. Can we cut back the 70 mamas to maybe 35 or 12 or whatever?" But ultimately that one was just some levity in the night. It was great to see Scott Hall go in. And he got to go in with all of his brothers. I mean, he didn't go in with them, but they were all there. Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, X-Pac. It was great. He had a short speech, but you could tell he was very humbled. He also is going, taking DDP yoga right now. He's also trying to live a clean and sober life, which he almost died several times because of alcohol and drug overdoses. It's great to see people like him. It's a victory for everybody when these people don't pass away. And we've lost anybody who's a wrestling fan, an actual wrestling fan, has known that we've lost lots of people too soon. And I'm glad that Jake and Razor were not just statistics. And but then to segue right into the last entrant that we had was Paul Bear, and we lost him last year, and it was very sad. He had health issues. Anybody who looked at him would know that he's not the picture of health. And but to see not only Kane but his sons, and then the only time the Undertaker has came out during a Hall of Fame, that just shows you right there how much that he was respected by his peers and by the WWE. So overall it was a good ceremony. I'm happy with all the people that went in. I don't know a whole bunch about Carlos Colon, but I will dig a little deeper to go out of my way now and find out some more about him. But overall,
personally, I don't think he should have went in.
I don't necessarily either, but it's one of those things that it's stuff that we as fans don't get into. Obviously, our Hall of Fames would all be different than the WWE Hall of Fame. There would be some overlap, but people like Carlos Colon probably would not be in my Hall of Fame, and that's one of those things. You have to question why he's there. You have to.
Because he never really sold in America.
No.
The towns that he ran and the territories that he ran was where he was successful. A lot of people tie him to the whole Bruiser Brody incident.
Yes.
And I think I look at it as, because he's so closely tied to that incident, if you're never going to put Benoit in, and that's a whole nother ordeal, then you can't put someone like Colon in as well.
Yeah.
Because you're saying that, this is unproven, that he was a part or not a part of it. but we're still going to put him in anyways, then I think that you have to do the same with anyone else who's had some type of law issue.
Hashtag controversy right there.
Hashtag yes. Who I know one name that you're going to say. Who in your mind are they lacking? Like, I like your idea of 4 people in. I really like the idea because it's like you said, the well is going to run dry. As much as we want to say there's only so many professional wrestlers that people know of. Granted, we only know of guys who worked for the NWA, WCCW, WCW, WWF, WWE, ECW. Fans aren't going to know guys who worked for IWA Mid-South, aren't going to know guys who worked for Quintessential Pro Wrestling, guys who worked for, Global Wrestling Federation. There's going to come to a point to where they're going to say, like, we don't know who to put in because we put everybody in. And you can't put a guy like a Paul Diamond in the Hall of Fame in the WWE Hall of Fame because nobody knows who he is. So I do agree, and I think that should become a petition. 4 people, because I'm always upset at the people who are lower on the Hall of Fame card get more talking time than the big name draw of the Hall of Fame. So why not, if you're going to have, make it a 2-hour program, and each person who gets to talk, you get 4 people, each person gets 30 minutes.
Absolutely.
I think the marks on the Facebook page and yourself need to make the petition online, and I guarantee that you would get it. It would get through.
Yeah.
And you made a very good point of it. The well's going to run dry eventually, and I think too, because a lot of people. I like your idea of always putting in a tag team.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I miss as a kid is tag team wrestling. But if you had the choice of next year, you are in charge of the Hall of Fame to do it the way you want to do. If you do want to do the 4-person format, who are your inductees of next year's Hall of Fame?
As far as mine go, the headliner for next year, even though, and this is where I think that they don't want it to be a downer, but like this is what I would do. I would have Rick Rude go in as my main guy. His contributions are undeniable. I know that there's a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth because of what he did during the Monday Night Wars. He was on Raw and WCW Nitro at the same time.
The only person ever to do that.
Absolutely. But, he was a great worker, Intercontinental Champion, former WCW Champion. He is a great guy. And people that you look at like Dolph Ziggler and people that have come before him and after him, definitely looked up to Rick Rude. I would put Rick Rude in tomorrow if I could. As far as women go, it's a little more tough just because back in the day that, they aren't so much, there aren't so many that you can pick from. So you have to kind of think of today almost as well. So if I had to pick like a current diva, I would say Victoria. She did some good things in the business. She will go in there eventually. I definitely guarantee that she will. And as far as tag teams go, I'm putting in Demolition. I'm going to put in Axe Smash and Crush.
I was going to say, do you add Crush to it?
I had Crush, even though, he's obviously not going to be able to be there, but he was a part of Demolition. And, even if they just say Demolition goes in and Axe and Smash show up, everyone knows that Crush goes in there. It's a somber occasion because 2 of the 5 that I mentioned are no longer with us. But it's one of those things. It's not always going to be great. It's not always going to be bright and sunny and rainbows everywhere. We put in people that are no longer with us, but then we also put in people like Drew Carey. Jonathan Taylor Thomas has also been at WrestleMania as well as Chuck Norris, and I hope that they aren't put in the Hall of Fame. There's far more celebrities out there. Andy Kaufman, I mentioned earlier, it should be called the Andy Kaufman celebrity wing of the Hall of Fame. Now, this is where you get into it with other fans, and I, for one, do not want to see Sting in the WWE Hall of Fame because he was never in the WWE, but then I throw something out like Andy Kaufman. But you want to talk about Jerry Lawler's in the Hall of Fame, so obviously he had issue with Andy Kaufman, so I think that makes sense. But I just think that if you want to put in anybody and everybody, then you're just going to have to end up calling it the WWE's Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame instead of just the WWE Hall of Fame.
And I don't see why they don't call it just the Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Because as we said with the well water, or the well water. Gee,
yeah.
Christmas. With the well running dry, there's only so many guys that worked in WWE that that are Hall of Fame worthy.
Yeah.
And so eventually you're going to have to get to guys who were WCW loyal or guys who were NWA loyal, and include them into it.
Yeah. It's one of those things too, is that you look at Ric Flair's already been in there twice, as Ric Flair and as a member of the Four Horsemen. Are they going to put him in as Evolution? He's going to be a 3-time Hall of Famer. I don't know what they're going to do with that. And are they going to say, because the Four Horsemen were never really in the WWE. You had Tully and Arn, they were there as the Brainbusters, and you had Ric Flair by himself, but the Four Horsemen were never in the WWE. So,
yeah.
And you about WWE kind of rewriting their own history. What happens whenever you put in DX? Are you going to put Chyna in there too? Or are you going to leave her out? You're going to put Rick Rude in there? Or are you going to leave him out? It's very. I think that I had heard this idea of venues and matches being.
Yeah, as you say, I've heard a lot of people mention that they actually this year had thought about doing the WrestleMania 1 main event this year.
Yeah, and I think that that's just another example of them running out of people. Is that they think, oh wow, we should put Madison Square Garden to the WWE Hall of Fame. Well, okay, here you go, Madison Square Garden. Here's your ring, and you want to come up on stage and talk? I mean, it makes no sense to me. But that's the case that they have to work with right now, is because they can't keep going at the rate that they're going.
I would say if I'm going to do the Jonathan Benjamin route of the 4 Hall of Fame candidates, I think, oh man, I would say when it comes to the female side, there's so many choices. You've got I agree with you, Victoria. I definitely think that she will be Hall of Fame worthy one day. Fantastic worker and one of the most genuinely awesome people that I've ever met, whether celebrity or non-celebrity. If you get the opportunity, if you're watching this right now, go to Chicago and go visit the Squared Circle. Follow them on Twitter. Follow her on Twitter. She is so friendly. My college team that I coach, we played in Chicago this past fall, and I had mentioned that I was going to be in Chicago. I really want to come by the place and try out the restaurant, hopefully meet her. And my wife and my sister-in-law and I, we left the game to go to the restaurant, and I just said, hey, we're on our way. I can't wait to have the food. Really excited about it. And she actually was getting ready to leave before we got there, but waited for us to get there so that we could have that experience. And instead of hanging out for like 5 minutes, thanking us for coming to the restaurant and then leaving, she actually stayed for like an hour and a half longer and just sat with us to talk to us. So I think, Victoria's definitely Lisa Marie Varon. I think that she is someone who's Hall of Fame worthy. I would also throw in, I think you got to put Molly Holly in there. I think overall worker-wise, she's one of the best. I think Medusa, Alundra Blaze. I mean, let's call a spade here. One of the best performers in women's wrestling. I think some of the older pre-Diva days women. I think you got to throw Miss Elizabeth in there.
Yep.
Is another one as well. So with the women, it's very. It's wide open. That well's not run dry yet, and I think that they can. Throw in their Sable. I mean, let's call a spade again. Made a lot of money for the company, brought a lot of attention to the company. I would also like to see Tori Wilson as well. That's just a personal thing. That was always my girl back in the day. Tag team wise, I would say the Bulldogs, because you always hear people talk about Dynamite Kid, and he just had a documentary put out of him. I think that would bring a lot of a lot of old school fans back because a lot of people were Bulldog fans. I think you could also go the route of, man, and that's the thing. There's so many because if you only pick four, there's just a big amount of people that you could pick. I'm going to say my four is just to start off. I'm going to go Medusa as the women nominee. We'll go with I'm going to go with the Bulldogs as the tag team, and then I'm not going to put a celebrity in. Because I think they show up once a year, if that. I think you can go. You have to choose either between Rick Rude or Savage. You can't put them both in at the same time. One of those two, along with Kerry Von Erich. I know that the Von Erich family is in, but if you look at Kerry's history, he did work in the WWF. Didn't really get the big opportunity to shine like I figured that he would have. But if you look at the draw that he had in Texas working for his father, I think he is a big proponent. So I would say Von Erich with either Savage or Rude. You can't put those two in at the same time. And then the Bulldogs along with Medusa. And I think you save the following year and you induct the NWO. And you only induct the three main members.
Yeah. It's one of those things too. Is that it becomes, I think that's perfect. Is okay. This year they did all those people, so maybe there's even a theme. Like the next year they induct, like I'm trying to think how you can do this, but just induct the NWO and that's it. And then like the next year maybe it's you want to do Money Incorporated. So it's like, Ted DiBiase was already inducted, but like, IRS, Mike Rotunda, and Ted DiBiase go in together or whatever. So there's opportunity here, and they could make it very special, but I think that they've gotten to the point where they just want big names, and so that they draw because the Ultimate Warrior was announced pretty early on, and that was to sell the tickets to the Hall of Fame. Yeah. And if you're a real professional wrestling fan, then it doesn't matter really. You're gonna just want to go to be there, regardless of who they name. But there's just so many people that I definitely, and like we said, ours would probably be somewhat close to that. Ours would probably have a lot of the same people, but to not, to just throw in everybody and anybody, I think that's kind of insane.
Do you think the fans should be allowed to go to the Hall of Fame? I've been to one. I got to go to Ric Flair's down in Orlando, and I'll admit this. I really don't watch the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
When it's on TV because I can't stand. I love Raw. I love the pay-per-views because of the fan interaction, but I don't care about the fan reaction at the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And I feel like wrestling fans at the Hall of Fame are so rude. Like, don't chant what? Don't, the one more match crap. That's one thing I can't stand.
Yeah.
I think the you still got it chant that kills me too. I want it just let the wrestlers. That's who they should be talking to. And I can get the same laughs from a story from Steve Austin about some rib he pulled on Owen Hart or that Owen Hart pulled on him. I'll get the same laugh of him telling that to just the wrestlers on my couch as I would if I was there.
Yeah. It's one of those things is I feel like WWE has let us in on something special. It's almost like pulling the curtain back and they say, okay, listen, you guys can be at this event and you can hear these special stories and learn about the business and be very into something that is typically not, it's a brotherhood. You hear that all the time. It's almost like a fraternity. And then all of a sudden you get that. Like last year I was there whenever Maria Menounos was trying to induct Bob Backlund and everybody was going crazy. And then the thing with Trish Stratus and she brought her husband out and everybody was booing him. And it's like one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. And I feel like that's what I was kind of talking about earlier is whenever they were chanting Husky Harris at Bray Wyatt. Is these fans, they're smart fans, and they want to go out there and you know, hijack things. And I wouldn't be so upset if the fans were not allowed at the Hall of Fame. You almost should have to be able to take a test, like, okay, name all of the Royal Rumble winners, and then you can come in, or tell me when did Ric Flair have his plane crash and who else died in the plane, and I mean, like, it's just one of those things that it's disrespectful, and it's a night where it's people paying the ultimate respect to get into the Hall of Fame. I mean, for crying out loud, people like Wade Boggs, once again trying to legitimize the sport. Wade Boggs inducted Mr. Perfect and was crying on stage. It's a powerful night. It's an amazing thing, and these people work their whole life, and to be recognized only to have people chant what, or boo or whatever. Like Donald Trump, people don't realize, but he doesn't have to do anything. Donald Trump is like a billionaire, and he doesn't have to do any of this stuff with wrestling. And the fact that you boo him during a match is one thing, but the fact that Vince McMahon and his peers said that Donald Trump was instrumental in some way into the WWF, WWE, and now you're booing him just because you think he's stupid or he's got more money than you or whatever. I think it's a little, it's ridiculous.
Because I can remember, like I said, I never really watched the Hall of Fame before, and I still to this day feel cheated out of my money that I spent on the Hall of Fame ticket because of the people that I was surrounded by. I like the idea of having to take a test to be able to get in, but I think too, if you watch, for our sports listeners out there, you watch the Basketball Hall of Fame. There's, you don't hear fans boo whenever they bring something up. And I don't even think that fans really actually do get to participate in that. You watch the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's on TV. And no one boos if some rock and roll girl brings out her husband, things like that. I think it's just, if you really want me to think the moment is special, then take the fans out of it. I think that's going to be one of the best things going forward, because I don't want to hear what after every word. I don't want to hear fandangoing in the background or things like that, or one more match. I think the more secretive, I hate to use that word, but the more kayfabe or protect the business and leave it just to the wrestlers themselves, I think you'll get a lot more out of it. Our last thing that we'll talk about, I don't want to keep you too long. I know you're a very busy man with the world of professional wrestling, and you've got to get ready for Raw and whatnot here in a little while. But some big news out of today is Jeff Jarrett's promotion has been announced, the Global Force Wrestling company. You're a I would have labeled you as you are, for our sports fans that are out there, you are the Adam Schefter of professional wrestling. And Adam Schefter is the guy who is on the inside of every NFL team, organization, knows all the trades, all the signings, the firings, the hirings before they happen, or he's the first person that anybody tells, and he relates the message. And I feel that you are the Adam Schefter of that. What do you know about this promotion from Jarrett?
It's been pretty tight-lipped right now. Jeff Jarrett came out, and there was a lot of teases on Twitter and all of the other, the different social media sites. A lot of people, just real quick, didn't realize that Jeff Jarrett was instrumental in TNA. So Jeff Jarrett basically started TNA and did for a while. I mean, I don't necessarily know that they were ever in stiff competition with the WWE, but they were an alternative, and they were the top two wrestling promotion in the country. So I think Jeff Jarrett's name and his knowledge carries a lot of weight. I think that this is going to be interesting, to say the least. We were talking earlier, and the site was down, that he was trying to, and which means that there was a lot of heavy foot traffic going into there. It's Global Force Wrestling, so maybe where he's going to be looking all over the world. And I know that he'd spent a lot of time like in India. There was a couple of wrestling things he did over there, and he was trying to find talent all over the world. And we talked about the Daniel Bryan versus the world thing earlier, and this may be a thing because wrestling talent. I know there's a movie that's going to come out soon about a guy who is in, this is your sports world and you'll probably know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a Disney movie where the guy is supposed to go out and find new talent for baseball, and he finds I want to say it's like, it's not
the cricket player.
Yeah, the cricket player. Yeah. So I think that this is maybe what he's doing right now is he's going around the world trying to find new and exciting talent. And obviously, when you start a wrestling promotion, you're going to have some established names, or people just aren't going to care. So, the world of professional wrestling is large but small in the sense that, like, people right now like Carlito are free agents. So, he's got some buzz about him, so I would have Carlito there. And then maybe you have somebody from, the United Kingdom that is an up-and-comer that no one really has heard about yet. So the sky's the limit for Jeff Jarrett at this point. And, coming out of this, like I said, it's pretty tight-lipped, but he does have an Instagram account. He's got a Twitter account, Facebook. Him and Karen are constantly all over the news. So there's a lot of local promotions here, like FWE, which is Family Wrestling Entertainment. There's also another promotion out of New York. A guy by the name of Eric Pleska also runs that promotion, and he's wrestled for some of them, and it's a lot of local talent with some big names. So it's going to be interesting for sure to see where he goes with this. But it's strategic that he planned this unveiling today, to say the least.
Oh yeah, because this is the Wrestling Buzz Day. The day, I was telling one of my neighbors that came over last night is that the day after Mania is almost like the start of the new season.
Yeah.
This is where everything for the next year is started tonight, or starts today. So I think it's professional wrestling's at a buzz right now, and he's getting himself involved. And you just hit on something too, and I want our listeners and viewers to be a part of this. And when I say, you're the Adam Chef or you're the inside guy, you actually do work within professional wrestling organizations. If you could talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm relatively new to it, and I started out actually there is a local promotion in the Northeast called Northeast Wrestling, and the guy there, he saw me at a lot of the shows, and he asked, one time if I wanted to help out, and I provided music for the, some of the guys that were going to be there, Kevin Nash, the Bellas. So it was as simple as like burning a CD and then bringing it to the guys, and because they knew I had all the themes or whatever. Shortly after that, I actually helped do an autograph signing with Bobby Lashley, and from there, last year I got to help out with House of Hardcore, which is Tommy Dreamer's promotion, and I didn't do much. They're the ones doing all the big things, but I played the music for the guys going out to the ring, and it's an unreal experience for somebody who's just a lifelong wrestling fan to actually be even a small part of that. And I've always said that it's all I've ever wanted to do was give back to the business that has given so much to me. And that probably sounds very corny, and for people who aren't fans don't understand. But like this, since this is a sports thing, it would be almost like your favorite team is the Cubs or the Reds or the Yankees or whatever, and they said, hey, I've noticed you at all these games. How about you come and be the bat boy, or even sell T-shirts or whatever. I mean, it's just it's something that I've always wanted to be involved in. Now I actually get to be involved in, even if it's such a small part. But yeah, it's unbelievable, and I'm looking forward to hopefully helping out more at some point.
Who's been your favorite person to work with in your experiences working with these wrestling organizations?
It's just such a blur whenever you see it. But like when I was working at the first one I did with Northeast Wrestling, I actually had a shirt on that was the Superman logo, but it had like spikes on the super part and then like ooze coming off of it, and it was supposed to be Super Shredder. So I was wearing the shirt, and Kevin Nash was, all the guys were back there as we were waiting for the fans to come in. And Jerry Lawler actually came up to me and he said, "Oh, that's a nice shirt. Does it come in men's sizes? Because I'm a smaller guy or whatever." So it's just the fact that like they're not on at that moment. They don't have to talk to you. They're bigger than you'll ever be. They've made more money in their sleep than you ever will. And the fact that Jerry Lawler will come up, and now the fact that some of these people actually remember you and talk to you. And I was talking to you earlier is that at the last House of Hardcore show that I was at, which they have two. Well, they actually have three coming up. One's going to be on the or the West Coast, and then there's one in Poughkeepsie in June, and one the next night in Philadelphia. But I actually had a jacket on, and the match was going on. The final match was a very emotional and passionate match with Tommy Dreamer and Terry Funk going against Sean Waltman, X-Pac, and Lance Storm. And after the match, Bully Ray came out, Bubba Ray Dudley, and beat up everybody. But Lance Storm was back behind me, and he was talking to me, and he put his hand on my shoulder or whatever, and he didn't think anything about it. But I thought, wow, this was crazy. I got Lance Storm, if I could be serious for a moment, with his hand on my shoulder, and then later on I looked down, and there was blood that somehow gotten transferred from X-Pac to Lance Storm to then my jacket. And I told you that if 13-year-old Jonathan Benjamin knew that someday he would be helping a wrestling promotion and then get blood from one of these guys actually on his arm, he probably would have just said, "That's it. Nothing more is going to top this moment." So it's just a great feeling. It's a great thing. Like I said, with the advent of Twitter and social media, it's just amazing. You can talk to these people and they actually treat you because even if they don't like everything that the fans do, the reason that they are making money and the reason that they're in this business is because of the fans. So to give back or to be a part of the show in a actual business sense it's amazing. So it's great. It's great.
Who's some of the big name guys that when they see you they recognize who you are?
I've actually seen a lot of, and this is just from seeing the same people, but like I said, Lawler's one of the people that always kind of seems to recognize me. Whenever I was at the the last House of Hardcore show, before Tommy, because Tommy didn't actually ask me to help. It was somebody else that asked me, and Tommy okayed it or whatever. But because I went to so many shows, he recognized me and would talk to me and have a conversation with me about just whatever, and if I liked the show and all that stuff. So I've actually met Sam Shaw, he's a big interviewer, and he has a radio show and he talks to everybody, and I've talked to him several times now. So it's just like I said, it's a great thing. And I got to talk to a guy that is big in the independent scene, or was. His name was Rob Echoes at the time, and now he is Robbie E on TNA Impact. And he wrestled for this small promotion around here, and just a down-to-earth guy. And got to talk to him, and that's what's great about these local shows around here. There's another great wrestler by the name of Brian Anthony. He's a smaller guy, but reminds me of people like Shawn Michaels, and just he loves the business. He's and he's a great guy. But another two names that are really cool are Vic Delicious, who used to wrestle in OVW, and he's a major part of House of Hardcore, and Hale Collins, and they used to team on the independent scene around here, and they're very, very instrumental in House of Hardcore right now. But they're both phenomenal talents, and Vic Delicious, I think, is very wise beyond his years. I think he's got a lot of information and a lot to give back to the business. So hopefully you see a lot more coming out of these guys with the help of House of Hardcore.
And if you get the opportunity, make sure to find Jonathon on Facebook, because you will see his picture with literally every wrestler for the last 20, 30 years in his photo albums. What's some of your top five guys top five wrestlers, female, male, that you've met that you that you did get starstruck, or that you did have that hold your breath moment, because I'm sure you're a lot like myself. Like you can meet someone that you've seen before, and it's just kind of a normal thing. You never really met a stranger. You talk to them, but we both have those people, those celebrities that we've met where we literally like could not say anything. So
Yeah.
who's a couple of the wrestlers that when it came time to meet them, that 13-year-old, 9-year-old Jonathon came out and just couldn't say anything.
I mean, Vince McMahon's got to be the top one. I got the opportunity to meet him at Linda McMahon's rally last year, and that was somebody that I never thought I would meet, and I got to, and it was just mind blowing because, like I said, and I said this about all these guys, he's never going to remember that he met me, but I will never forget that I met him, and it was just he was personable, down to earth. He talked to me, and this was on a night that his wife lost the Senate bid. He could have not talked to me at all, but he chose to, and he was a great person. Daniel Bryan's another person. No matter how many times I meet him, I think I've met him 5 or 6 times now. He's just down to earth, and you can tell that he's humbled by every fan that comes to talk to him. He's a great person. I got to meet Paul Heyman twice last year. Paul Heyman is just a brilliant person, genius, and funny, and cares what people think, and he's great. I loved meeting, let's see here, Rowdy Piper was a big name whenever I was younger. He was absolutely a mainstay for me. And probably rounding out the top 5, I know I'm forgetting lots of people that I've met, but I got the opportunity to meet Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he is just somebody that's going to get credit for all the great matches and stuff, but he's got a great mind for the business, and he's just one of those people that's like infectious. Like I could see sitting down with him, and he would literally talk to you probably for hours, just like we were doing, and it would never get old. It would never get tiring. So
his podcast really has it's opened him up. Like you get to see Steve Williams, and you get to, he has that conversation where, and I think that he's even said it too. Like when he meets fans, he wants you to feel like you and him have known each other your whole lives, or that he's the guy that you meet at the bar, sit down, have a drink with, and you end up talking for the next 3 hours.
Yeah, and he was, this was a signing whenever he. Let's see here, the movie Damage came out that he was a part of. And, he wasn't there to talk about the movie. I mean, they sold the movie and stuff, but he wasn't there to talk about the movie. He wasn't there to talk about wrestling. He was just there, and he was genuinely interested in everything that, you came in and you said, hey, man, it's great to see you, and you were a huge inspiration, or, I just loved everything you did in the ring. Whatever you came to him with, he was real, and you could tell that he appreciated at one time, and it can be argued that he's the greatest superstar of all time, and he's sitting in a mall at an FIE shooting the breeze with anybody who came in there, and that's the mark of somebody that's just a great person in general. So.
And then what are some you mentioned a couple of guys. Who are some guys that you're seeing on the indie scene out on the East Coast that you think people should tap into and check out on YouTube?
I would be definitely remiss if I didn't speak about this tag team that I don't know how they'd feel about me, but I feel greatly about them. They're called the Xer guys. They are 2 guys, and one of them's Redbeard. His name's John. You can find him on Facebook, but definitely look up the Xer guys, John and Mike Mitchell. And these guys are, they're going out there. They were just in Tennessee, and they are wrestling all over not just the Northeast, but all over the world. And these guys they're funny. They get it, and I think that they have a future in the business. I really do. And I've seen them go against guys like Big Daddy V, God rest his soul, and just great talent. Another guy that I would like to talk about, his name's Vladimir Joseph. He's a member of the Marks Group, but he's also he's trying to make it, and he's got a great mind for the business as well. And I appreciate people like this that they're fans, and they're fans first, and and wrestlers second. So it's great. I think that all three of those guys are doing great. And like I said, I've gotten the opportunity to meet some of the House of Hardcore students because Tommy Dreamer is actually running a school as well. So there's a lot of good people coming out of there that that are going to hopefully make it.
Do you see yourself working for WWE one day?
Oh my God, I wish. I really do. Right now it's going to be funny to say this out loud, but I am a farmer. I moved from Indiana, which is all farms, to Connecticut and New York, where there's like 6, and I work for one of those right now. I would love to work for WWE in some capacity, but like I said, I will work for any company that it has to do with professional wrestling because it's given me so much in my life. So I would like doing things like this that are just a no-brainer for me. I love talking about wrestling, and I love, I love being able to share my excitement with other people and I don't want people to feel like they're in the minority. I know you said that you feel weird whenever you talk to friends about wrestling, but I think it's something it's cross culture, it's pop culture, it's now, and people are talking about it, and you can go to Kmart and see it, and you can go to Madison Square Garden. It's selling out Madison Square Garden. It's in every country. It's over 50 states and some 37 countries. People went to Wrestlemania. We're not in the minority anymore, and that's something that's important. I think that wrestling and wrestling fans are a different breed, and it's amazing. It's the greatest show on earth. It really is.
Well, if you wouldn't have moved, I would have someone to talk to all the time and to watch these shows with.
Well, someday I'll be back, and then we can pick up right where we left off for sure.
Do you see yourself, working with professional wrestling organizations or possibly work for WWE one day? Do you see yourself as just a behind-the-scenes guy, or would you like to be like out in the open and performing?
Oh my God! Once again, I'm not a big guy. I'm not at all. No one's ever accused me of that. But I have a loud mouth, and I could see myself trying to be a manager of some sorts, a GM like Brad Maddox, something like that. I would absolutely love to be that person. But I just think that I would have to be somebody who, whether it does something with social media or somebody who even just works with the autograph signings or whatever, that's probably my biggest strength. But if I had to, I would love to get out there and be like a manager. I was drawn to those guys like Bobby Heenan and Paul Heyman because they are those guys. Even Jim Cornette, yeah, they've all been involved in matches, but they loved wrestling so much that they started out at the bottom. They were selling popcorn or programs or whatever, and they got that opportunity to be a manager, and they took it by the throat, and they just ran with it. And I would love to be a part of something like that. But like I said, I'll do whatever I can just to be part of it.
I would say for the fans on the East Coast and all the people of the Marks group that follow Jonathon, and he just gave out some names of people to look out for. I still do attend indie shows here in Indiana when the opportunity arises. A kid that's here in the city I live in, his name's Micah Silva. He has had numerous workouts with WWE over the last couple of years. I think he's a guy that he can break the barrier and is going to get big. And he actually, I have to mention him because he gave me the opportunity to live a dream. This is a Sean Soderling Show first reveal. If you go on YouTube and search for the channel Official Duke Douglas, you will see myself as the world's greatest heel manager. For me, it was an opportunity to. I'm not a person who gets upset a lot, but it was a chance for me to just say whatever I wanted to and release a lot of steam. While Jonathon is the behind-the-scenes guy, the organizer, and things like that, I will say that I am the put me in front of the crowd. I'll talk. I'll do whatever. There's one of the clips that's on there. And you may have to dig a little bit for this one, but I actually one night decided that Micus and we had worked together. I was his manager. I had eventually turned on him, causing him to go baby, and we had. I was going out getting people to go against him and his brother, and I decided. I actually thought about you whenever I decided to do this. Was we really teased the whole thing of him versus me at one point in time, which would you know, would be worth $5 if we did that. But I decided that one night when we were going to really tease he versus myself, I decided to pull the old Ric Flair, and I had the suit on. I had these two big guys. I had Bo Sawyer and Matt Maverick holding me back. The jacket came off, throw it in the middle of the ring, hit the ropes, come back, elbow drop on top of the jacket, hit the ropes again, knee drop on top of the jacket. I got so fired up, I took the jacket, picked it up, threw it onto the turnbuckle, started dropping Dusty Rhodes elbow drops on top of it, just causing this big scene. So if you're watching the show right now, make sure to go to the official Duke Douglas page to see yours truly as a pro wrestling manager. I know that with a lot of the stuff that I said to the crowd and to make fun of them, I know that my cousin Jonathon would be proud of. I actually stole some of his lines that I've heard him use before at shows when talking to the quote-unquote booger eaters. So I hope that one day the two of us could work a show, whether we set one up or we're both we need someone to give you and myself a ring for like an hour and just let us go to town.
Yeah, that would be probably one of the best things that ever happened, actually.
Yes, I know with if you ever come back, you got to come watch Micah's. He is currently working with we talked earlier about Coliseum Wrestling on Saturday mornings on TV. They still run shows. Coliseum Championship Wrestling here in Evansville, Indiana, which there's so much history behind Coliseum Wrestling. Micah's is a big part of that. If you get the opportunity, like them on Facebook, like him on Facebook. One of those kids that just gets it, and he has the it factor. I think if we can get the opportunity, we need to bring you in back to Evansville, get you in somehow, some way, and you and I just need to run a show. And I think after the one show, and give us, and I like the House of Hardcore that you work for. I like the style of do a show, give it a couple months, run another one.
Yeah.
And I think that, and especially in Evansville, that would give you enough time to truly build up and bring people involved to really make a draw. But we need to figure out a way to get you here in town again, or I'll come up there.
Yeah.
And I'll bring some guys with me that I know work down here. But there's got to be a way. Somebody watching right now has a ring that they'll let us use.
Yeah.
And just let us go to town.
I mean, I fly first class. I need a good travel stipend, like a nice hotel and a good Golden Corral or Chick-fil-A, and that's pretty much all I need to be there.
So he's got high value. Well, man, it's awesome. As I said earlier to everybody, this is my cousin. We used to be attached at the hip, and then he moved on to the green pastures of Connecticut, and we don't really talk as much as we used to. But this probably went a lot longer than what we both were expecting, just because we haven't spoken so long, and we really actually do only talk about wrestling most of the time whenever we are interacting. But I think with the Sean Soderling show, as I said at the beginning, we have had a lot of people ask to talk about professional wrestling. I do think that we need to get you on as a guest if we could be a weekly 1 hour, 2 hour show here on YouTube, maybe like the day after Raw or something, and get you involved with the Sean Soderling show. I know you could promote it. We could have your own little segment on there to talk about wrestling. But whatever we got to do, we've got to have you back on the show.
I appreciate it, and I've always thought that you are always going to be on to bigger and better things. You're a great talent, whether it be musically or anything that you put your mind to. You do a great job. So it was a no-brainer for me to be here, and I will be back anytime you need me.
Awesome. Well, next time we do this, we'll put it back up on the Marks page on Facebook, and and maybe this might branch off from the Sean Soderling show, and we'll just have our own.
Absolutely.
We definitely could do that, and we'll add a lot more of the Marks, and we'll do it in the evenings. Actually, once we get done, we'll talk about this a little bit, but I think we can get something with a lot more people on there. But this has been the Sean Soderling show. This is my cousin Jonathan Benjamin, professional wrestling super fan. Follow him on Twitter at Limousine Riding, Ryden actually,
Right. Yes.
Ryden, not Riding. As well as he is a big factor of this Facebook group called Professional Wrestling Marks, Marks for Life. You actually have some of your own podcasts that you guys do.
Yeah, we do a Spreecast, which is something similar to, like this Google Hangout or whatever, but we typically do it on, just we have a schedule now, but you can definitely look us up on Spreecast. It's called Marked Up, MARK apostrophe D, and then Marked Up. But yeah, it's just one of these great things. Like I said, I'm always down to talk about professional wrestling, and with these guys, there's a guy that a couple guys that helped create the group, Steve Credo and Eric Rassen, and Albert as well. But we enjoy doing it, and anytime that you're available, just check out on Spreecast. And it's a live thing, so you can get on, and we actually invite you on to talk to us about it. So please, by all means. And if you see me in public, don't feel nervous or anything like that. I sign autographs typically for kids and women. So.
Unless they call you something about the Spirit Squad.
Oh, absolutely, and then it's over.
Well, I definitely think that we're gonna do this again, and we're just gonna have to tell our own old wrestling stories, because we've caused a lot of havoc at shows in our heyday, and we talked earlier about the Thurman Sparkplug Bob Holly incident. We'll say that for another show. But Jonathan, definitely thank you for being on today's show. It's something new, this whole live YouTube thing. We'll branch off and do something bigger and better next time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. This has been Jonathan Benjamin. I'm your host, Sean Soderling, here on The Sean Soderling Show. Make sure to like us on Facebook. It's The Sean Soderling Show. Follow me on Twitter, at Coach Soderling. Give me ideas. We've got tonight coming up is the national championship game in college basketball. What a crazy segue. Professional wrestling, college basketball, March Madness. It's the same drama as Wrestlemania was. Who do you got tonight? Make sure to let us know on Twitter and on Facebook. It's going to be the University of Kentucky Wildcats or Jonathan's University of Connecticut Huskies. And we'll make sure to get on next week who everyone picked and if it was who actually won. We want to thank Jonathan for being on here. We want to thank all the pro wrestling marks that have been tuning in and watching. We'll do this again. We'll get more people involved, and I'll try to bring some type of sports entertainment to the world of professional wrestling with the marks and their podcast. We want to thank everyone for tuning in and watching. Make sure to stay tuned for the next edition of The Sean Soderling Show.